My friend says caffeine's a drug. I said, oh, tell your friend, fuck you.
I don't want to be your buddy, Rick. Just want a little breakfast.
Hello. Timecop. 1974. Timecop. 1974. We're gonna talk some shit. Timecop.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Punks, a podcast about weird shit, DIY punk and trashy movies. Brought to you by Sham City Roasters and Deadbeat Donuts. From Hastings, I'm Siobhan.
And I'm Dave, and welcome to episode 30. Episode 30 is going to be one of our Timecop episodes.
Of course.
Timecop episodes are where we randomly ask our friend Timebot 500.
I am Timebot 500.
There he
is, the lovely robot to help us pot.
To randomly pick us a year. And everything else goes out the window, so there is going to be no music, there's going to be no news, no Norfolk news, there's going to be some trashy movies.
Yeah.
There's not going to be the usual format, so instead we're just going to chat about the year 1974.
Whoop whoop.
Death to the fascist insect that preys upon the life of the people.
I have never been a quitter.
Electronics are everywhere, and we don't think the sounds belong to us or anybody can take it away from us.
Have you ever come across any of these Satanists?
I'm performing as myself, but I will continue in the future. After I've done what I wish to do at the moment, return back to writing stories, and I will enact them again, and I don't care what anybody says, I like doing it, and it's what I shall continue to do.
Innocent women and children blown to bits. We've got to protect our phony baloney job, gentlemen. We must do something about this immediately. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. Just a governor harumph. Harumph. I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
You hate the police, don't you? You make it easy.
Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What can you buy that you can't already afford?
Nice little bit of music there.
That was a beautiful little bit of
Made by
music.
Timebot 500.
Yeah, always a clever bastard, that Homer's part. But yeah, so as Dave's mentioned, we are looking at 1974, and these episodes are an excuse to do a bit of a deep dive into years that we may have had knowledge about or maybe have no clue about. And it's a good excuse because we generally don't really think about anything in our culture past 1985. So
is that the royal we?
I don't know. I just feel like music-wise, we're not very good at listening to things beyond that, and movies-wise, we usually wouldn't pick it. So 1974 is a bit different. What did you think when Timebot kindly picked 1974?
I didn't have any immediate thoughts, really. Most of what I thought, I presumed wrong, I think, is probably fair to say.
Yeah.
I guessed that there would be some, pre-punk stuff.
Yep.
That we could get our teeth into, and whilst there definitely is, I mean, obviously it's just a few years before 1976 or 77 or whatever, there's not really quite what I was expecting in that context. I thought that there would be some really grey, beige films, because that's what I presume 1974 films look like. And that wasn't entirely true. Basically, when we started actually looking at what there was, I was quite surprised by just how much really interesting, cool shit came out in 1974.
Yeah.
I think we said exactly the same thing. We've done 2 of these now.
Oh, we've done 3 of these now.
Well, this is the 3rd one.
Yes.
We've done 2 of these.
We've done 2 prior to
now,
yes.
So we've done 1966 and 2004.
Yes.
I think it's worth saying that at the beginning, just because I'm sure we'll probably compare. But the 1966 one was similar to this in as much as I didn't really have that much stuff to get my teeth into. There wasn't anything that immediately jumped to mind. I thought there would be more stuff. But in 1966 we found loads of good stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe this is just going to happen every time we do it. I would say in 2004 we didn't find that much good stuff.
It wasn't the most cultural pot of things.
But yeah, 1974 it turned out, I mean, film-wise, we're actually to some extent going to have to change the format of how we've done this before, just because there were so many films that to concentrate on like the big blockbusters or whatever just wasn't going to work because there was just it would have worked I suppose, but we wanted to watch loads of films.
Yeah.
And like the same goes really for music. There was loads of like really cool music made, and probably I don't think I've ever thought of it in this context. I don't know if I would say that I have a favourite news story of all time.
Oh,
but if I have a favourite news story of all time, then it's a news story. It's sort of a cultural event. We'll talk about it in a bit.
Oh, yeah, I wonder what this is. I'm trying to guess, knowing. We'll find out.
I mean, it's pretty obvious, but yeah, that happened in 1974. So we'll get to that. There's there's a little tidbit.
There's a little,
pulling you in there.
The
audience.
I wonder what Dave's favourite news story of all time
How
is.
exciting! Can you even imagine?
Well, you won't have to imagine much longer, guys. We'll talk about it now.
Well, we won't yet, because what did you think when we
fair.
got 1974?
Well, I guess I went straight to thinking about music and thinking, gosh, what would have been in 1974? And I was a little bit wrong, because I was like, I bet, UK glam stuff would have been at its peak, but it looks like that was on the way out. There's some stuff. And I thought maybe it's going to be all the like proper like dad rock stuff, and in a way that's kind of right. But there's loads of other stuff, so it's more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Film-wise, I didn't have a clue. Looking at it, one of my favourite films of all time came out that year, so there is that.
What's that?
We'll talk about it.
Jesus, there's another one. There's
you know what it is.
You've got to stay all the way until the end to find this one. What's Siobhan's favourite film?
It's genuinely one of the best films ever, I think. But
I know what it definitely isn't.
Yeah, that's true. There's a few that it isn't. But yeah, no, one of the best films ever came out this year, and news stories wise, I knew of a couple of them, and I think the one that is your favourite I had no clue about until we did a bit of a deep dive on this.
I think that's one of the reasons
now I'm like so enthralled by it. I think it is pretty awesome, so I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons it's my favourite news story is because I'm pretty sure that most people don't know, but that's probably over the top. A lot of people won't know about it.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Timebot 500, what did you think about 1974?
I was very young.
Oh, when were you built, Timebot? I think we worked out that you were built around 1966, so you must have just been a wee nipper.
A wee nipper?
I fucked a lot.
Oh, good for you. Jesus Christ, who are you fucking?
I don't even want to know, I don't think.
Toasters and other metally sexy things.
Other metally sexy things?
Well, Timebot 500, you dog.
Oh my God. Something's gone wrong with us. Well...
It's not us, it's Timebot.
Well, Timebot, stop with your perverted bullshit this evening and start us off with our lovely 1974 informations.
Very well done. One of the things that we've changed slightly from previous Timecop episodes is we're putting news and cultural events together.
Yeah.
To try and make this not be 3 hours long.
Yeah, exactly.
You're welcome.
But one thing we haven't changed is my fun quiz for Dave. So 1974, there's lots about Richard Nixon in this year. He is the first president to have visited all 50 states, but who is he refusing to shake hands with?
Oh.
What state is he refusing to shake hands with people from?
What state is he refusing to...
By the way, there's a tone of like pretty awfulness about all of my news culture quiz questions.
Is it a racist thing?
It's not quite a racist thing.
I'm going to say Hawaii.
It's not a pleasant thing.
He doesn't accept Hawaii as a state. It's
Oh!
the latest one, right?
Oh,
Must have been new. It might not have even been a state in 1974, I don't know.
I feel like that he probably wouldn't shake hands with people from Hawaii, but that is not it. It's people from San Francisco.
Oh, not because
not
of the... No.
Not pleasant. He said some... I don't know whether to even read out half the things he said, but he said some horrible things on his recordings.
Oh, secretly. You definitely shouldn't read out something he secretly said if it's horribly homophobic.
It's not pleasant, but he's not shaking hands from anyone from San Francisco. Other facts I found out about him: he used to be the president of a frozen orange juice company.
Oh.
And people consider him a really good poet. I don't know.
I don't think I'd ever want to read any of Richard Nixon's poetry.
I know, I tried to think. In Futurama, Richard Nixon is a bit of a character. He comes up quite a lot. Do you remember who does the voice for him in Futurama?
No. Is it someone famous?
Not someone famous, but he does the voices for an awful lot of characters.
Will Arnett.
Oh, no, I wish. No, Billy West, who does all of the voices for Futurama, pretty much. And he also does Ren and Stimpy's voices.
Ah,
and he's basically got the
face.
best voice ever.
Yeah.
He also had a band called Billy West and the Grief Counselors, which I just thought was beautiful. But I have looked them up and they are shockingly shit.
Fair enough.
Okay, another one. There was a woman called Christina Chubbuck, and she was famous for being on TV. She was a news reporter. She said on live TV, in keeping with Channel 40 policy of bringing you the latest in blood and guts, and in living colour, you're going to see another first. Then what did she do?
I do know what this is. She killed herself.
On TV?
But she said, if I'm not mistaken, an attempted suicide. This is the darkest thing.
Yeah.
So she killed herself on TV, but she introduced it exactly as obviously as you just said. But
Yeah.
she said an attempted suicide, but then actually did kill herself.
Shot
So
her head off.
you presume by the fact that she used the words attempted when she described it, that she wasn't actually planning on dying.
Oh,
at the
God,
end
I
of
haven't
it.
thought that far.
Yeah,
And she was only like 29.
Oh, dear.
Oh, it's really bad. Sorry, some of these questions will be nice, but they all seem to be quite unpleasant.
Homophobia, suicide.
Yeah, it's going well. Oh, this one's nicer.
Okay.
A 3.2 million year old hominin. Do you know what a hominin is?
It's some sort of fossil. It's a fossilised human.
It is. It was found in Ethiopia and became a household name. Do you know what the name of this creature was?
Oh, God. No.
Good. They named her Lucy.
Oh.
Everyone seemed to know that she was called Lucy. Do you know why she was called Lucy?
Was it because of I Love Lucy?
No, worse maybe. It was
the person
Lucy
who
in the
discovered-
Sky with Diamonds was playing when the people who found her were talking about it. How boring and shit. But the Ethiopian name for her was much nicer. It was Dinkanesh, and that means you are marvellous.
You are marvellous.
Dinkanesh.
How nice.
Isn't that nice? This one I like. The unsuccessful self-treatment of a case of writer's block by Dennis Upper was published this year. He was a clinical psychologist. And what was special about this?
I know what this is.
Yeah?
My God. I'm doing quite well, I think, anyway, unless this is totally wrong. It was blank.
Yep.
Because the point is that you can't cure writer's block, so he just released nothing.
Cha-ching!
Is that right?
Yeah, it is. He
yeah.
published a blank document. Legend. I love it. It's like absurdist. It's beautiful. One last one. Daylight saving started early in the US. Loads of things happened in the US because of the recession. So they lowered the speed limit to try and reduce fuel consumption. And another thing they did was they brought daylight saving earlier. But they had to stop it 2 years later. Do you know why?
What, daylight savings?
Yeah.
Was it something? Was it something about a recession? Did they not have enough money to turn the streetlights on earlier or something?
Not quite. I mean, that's why they did it. But it means that the mornings were darker earlier in the morning, so that the most of the daylight was in the middle.
Oh,
but do you know why they
I see.
ended that?
Because they got loads of money and so they wanted to turn the lights on all the time?
No, they were worried that kids waiting for the bus were getting hit by cars in the morning. Because all the children, the only people it really affected was children were waiting for their school buses in the middle of the dark with no streetlights on because they were saving money. So basically after 2 years they were like, too many kids are getting like hit by buses and cars, so we've got to stop. And I thought it was quite brilliant. Should have stayed.
Wonderful.
No, I'm joking.
Should have kept killing the kids.
No, I'm joking.
That's what Siobhan's saying.
Oh. And might I say, beautiful quiz music. Thank you, whoever made that quiz music.
Blockbusters.
Blockbusters.
Okay, well, we're going to start with some of the biggest news events, I think, of 1974 and just go through them.
Sounds fun.
And I think probably the biggest one as far as the world is concerned has already been mentioned, and that was Watergate.
Yes, indeedly.
In which Richard Nixon, the then President of the United States, was forced to resign. And he resigned in 1974. But something I did not actually realise is that the whole Watergate scandal actually started way before.
Yeah, it was 2 years before, I think.
Yeah. So 1974 was kind of the culmination of a number of years prior. We watched a documentary which is on YouTube, which I'll put on our YouTube playlist, which is called 30 Years After Watergate. And a lot of the sort of people that were inside the White House at the time are interviewed in it. It's kind of one of those documentaries that's little bit like Richard Nixon.
Yeah,
You know?
it is very that, like, but then this was happening in the White House. Do-do-do-do. true.
Which is fine,
Yeah.
but it's quite a good one of those. There was about 5 or 6 on there, and to be honest, the rest of them looked like they were even more like that. There was none that looked like sensible.
It was surprisingly like that, considering it was quite modern. I think it was made in like 2003, 2004.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's
it felt
not that
very
surprising, but yeah.
I don't know, it felt very 80s.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was interesting just because the people that they interviewed, I was like, oh, this is going to be like, oh, I was the secretary or I did nothing. But these were the people that were legit part of the planning and logistics of all of his nefarious things that he was doing in that time.
Yeah,
whether they believed it or not, they just kind of went along with it for whatever reasons. But
they were also the people that ended up in court. And a lot of them ended up in jail.
Yeah.
Which he, of course, did not.
Indeed, he did not.
So one of the darkest parts of Watergate that I found out was that Richard Nixon basically told loads of people to do loads of illegal things, including perjuring themselves on the stand, and we should probably talk about what Watergate is.
Well, we should, because I didn't actually know. I'd learned about it in like school history as part of like Cold War stuff, but it comes up very briefly, and it's not mega to do with anything to do with the Cold War. It's just that it happens in that time period. So the gist of it is, Richard Nixon was an extraordinarily paranoid, probably quite unwell man, and he was just convinced that people were working with the Russians or working against him at all times, and described people as his enemies a lot, not just their opponents, but like enemies. And so he started to get quite paranoid. One of the things he did was he put up bugging devices pretty much everywhere. He recorded everything that happened in his office and was just convinced that people were out to be against him. Part of this led to him organising a break-in of the Democratic National Committee headquarters, which would have been his opponents, in Washington, D.C. at the Watergate office building, thus the Watergate Scandal.
Which is always called the Watergate Hotel. I presume it was both a hotel and where the Democrats had set up their...
I guess so.
I've never quite worked that one out.
It's a complex, so I don't know if it has a hotel and then I don't understand exactly what it's all built of. But yeah, so basically 5 people broke in and were just searching for information, and they were caught in the middle of doing it. And when the people got caught, they weren't just like burglar looking, they were like in suits, and they looked like politicians with gloves on, basically, rooting through filing cabinets. And they like didn't just like break in casually and tried to like sneak out. They like battered the filing. Like, it was quite obvious that they...
I thought you were going to say they broke in sports casual.
Stop it.
Because they were so smart.
That's awful. But they weren't discreet. They they hammered things apart.
Well, they fucked it up. They fucked that up in as much as it was supposed to be a bunch of people that just couldn't be traced back to the White House in any way. Yeah. And so I think it was 4 Cubans or 3 Cubans, or something, or ex-Cubans, but they couldn't find enough people quick enough because I think Richard Nixon was so mad. He was just like, "I want this done. I want this done now."
Yeah.
And so one of the people they sent was a retired CIA agent, I believe, who was someone who was like really patriotic and everything. So as soon as he got caught and they said, "Who sent you to do this?" he basically just gave everything away.
Yeah. And I remember another thing is, one of the other guys had loads and loads of $100 bills in his pocket, and when they traced the money, it was from his Richard Nixon's campaign committee funds. And they were just like, there's so much blatant evidence that you have set up this burglary to try and gain information.
But the thing that surprised me the most was that this all happened. So Richard Nixon got 2 terms as president, well, 1 and a bit, and this all happened during his first term.
Yeah.
And came out, and so this was in all the papers and everything, and there was a sort of suggestion at the time. There was no one knew for a fact that it was anything to do with the White House as such, but there was definitely like journalists were starting to suggest it. There was evidence coming out and stuff. But despite this, he still fucking won on a landslide, didn't it? I think it was something like
every
only
state but one,
which was probably San Francisco.
Probably.
California. So that's crazy. I mean, I don't know whether, it's hard to know what it would have been like to have been in America at that time, whether this was coming out in the way that like all of Trump's like dodgy businesses, which weren't anywhere near as dodgy, or probably were, but the ones that came out weren't as dodgy, but whether it was like coming out clearly or whether people didn't really know about it and it just started to become clear, because the story seems to just like unravel more and more and more, and just become, it's like every step that they made put them further in the hole. So eventually the Watergate Scandal happens, and they go to, well, not court, but I suppose they go to be they take the stand. I don't really know
Yeah,
what
the
you call
US
that.
Senate does a
Yeah.
special investigative committee, and oh god, that main guy that's questioning them is amazing. He's a bit like what's that chicken that used to make a funny like I can't remember his name.
Not Yosemite Sam, but something like that. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
I can't remember.
He's like someone who's he is like a cartoon.
Yeah.
character. He's so rednecky.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
redneck.
Like
So-
Texas. He's like a Texas dude with a big cowboy hat on, and he
Yeah.
speaks like one.
And
I
he's-
really can't think of that chicken's
He's
name. But he's
really
like him.
old, and his face is wobbling everywhere.
And he's got a gavel.
He's got a gavel.
And he's dead funny, but and dead witty, but getting properly. He's obviously really angry at what's happened.
Yeah.
So he is there to seek the justice, but it's so obvious what's happened, and he just can't. He doesn't stand for any bullshit. So he's saying really witty things, and everyone's like laughing, and he's banging his gavel, and he's like, "I genuinely like." He's not saying it, but like, "I genuinely am fucking angry, and I mean this." But yeah, it is interesting what you said about him getting in for a second term, Richard Nixon, because I know he played it down. He was saying it was a third-rate burglary and it's nothing to do with us. And that was the kind of party line. And I wonder what else he was putting through at the time that must have been really impressive to everyone. Because he must have done... I know he did the war on drugs, which lots of people, or he at least instigated that. And I think as shitty as that turned out, I think people were really game for that at
It's
the time.
probably like a populist thing.
Yeah, I
mean,
wonder if
think
that
he
was like... good.
They were still in Vietnam, weren't they? And so
Well, he said he was going to start the efforts to bring people back, and he didn't. But then I think he did eventually start.
but I suppose in inverted commas, wartime presidents tend to be very popular, which is why they all go and start fucking wars.
But yeah,
the darkest thing about the whole business is that almost everybody involved in it, who were just doing what they were told by the president, ended up in some sort of legal trouble.
Yeah.
Most of them went to prison for a period of time. Richard Nixon did not.
No.
And the vice president, who took over from him when he stepped down his presidency, gave him a pardon.
Yeah, a month later.
so he never had to deal with any of this whatsoever. So that's really dark, but hardly surprising.
Yeah. It's so fucked up, but
yeah, I would recommend that documentary. Like I say, I'll put it on the YouTube playlist. It's good, and it definitely taught me a load of stuff about this subject, which I had absolutely no idea about. I always just knew that Watergate was a scandal when the president stepped down.
Yeah,
that was all I really knew, to be honest.
Yeah,
and I am not a crook.
Yeah.
Which I still don't know what they said. I think that all just came from Point Break and The Simpsons. All of my knowledge about Watergate
is from them.
Pretty much.
That's fair enough. Yeah, no, all I was aware of was recordings. And it's actually, I always thought that he'd bugged someone else, and that was the scandal. I didn't realise that it was actually simply a break-in that they got caught in the middle of.
He was bugging people as well, which was illegal.
He was no, of course he was bugging. But the recordings that people refer to, which is absolutely hilarious, is the ones in his own office. And one of the guys who goes to court, which is fucking brilliant. One of the guys who wasn't one of the Cuban men, but one of the insiders helped arrange it, was trying his hardest not to give any information away, or not perjure himself, but not do wrong by his president, because that was the problem. The president was still in power and they didn't want to fuck him over. So they're talking and they're like, is there any way that you could prove this? And they were like, oh, not really, no, trying not to lie. And they went, is there any recordings? And the guy's like, yes. And everyone's ears prick up and like, excuse me, there's recordings. And he was like, yeah, Richard Nixon's got like audio equipment in his office, and he has done since day one. So everything that's ever been said in his office is recording. And they were like, ding, 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 ding. And that was just fucking hilarious. And then it was all over from there.
And then there was a weird thing where they obviously asked for those tapes, and of course Richard Nixon himself had to give those tapes over. And the thing is with that is you would kind of figure, if anyone had any sense, before they were going to potentially perjure themselves on a stand, they would have just deleted all of those tapes or something. But of course there was loads of them public pressure of like, these tapes exist, we know these tapes exist. So then public opinion said, you have to hand these over.
Yeah.
And so he did. There was, I think, 12 minutes of one of them missing, which no one will ever know what was on that. Because, and the reason I bring that up really is because those 12 minutes must have been so fucking bad.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that's on those tapes, I mean, the documentary that we watched played a lot of the stuff that was like damning as far as the case was concerned.
Yeah.
But I've heard loads of these things where it's literally just, it's stuff like you were saying about San Francisco.
I mean, I don't want to quote what he said, but it's
some of
bad.
the most- and like just so much stuff like that where he sounds like a total bigot, like really bad, which of course I suppose in 1974 might have been slightly more acceptable, but also where he just sounds fucking
lunatic,
mad. And maybe, I suppose, if he was mad, he wouldn't have been able to see that. But I feel like it's really interesting to, if you can ever, again, I'll try and find some of the other ones on YouTube as well. Like, there's some really crazy shit that he says, and he's really paranoid, and it just makes you think about. That time was obviously the person with the most power in the entire world, and he was floridly psychotic. And I mean, obviously, it's very comparable to the situation that the world was in only a year or two ago.
Yeah.
But still, even when people just seem like lunatics, when they're in power, we kind of at least give them the benefit of the doubt to not actually seriously be mentally ill.
Yeah.
But of course, why wouldn't they be?
No, that's true.
And
once they're in, if you question them,
yeah,
that's what people, the people that were on the stand were worried. They didn't want to perjure themselves, but they didn't also want to get in trouble with the mental, president of the USA.
Yeah, but then also,
crazy boss.
As we saw with Trump, what happens is as well, the person at the top then dictates what is correct and what is normal. So then the whole nation becomes a sort of somewhat underling of this insane person with insane ideas. Very interesting.
It is.
Anyway, a bit closer to home than Watergate, the other really big story in 1974 was that the IRA begins a bombing campaign in mainland Britain. And there was two big bombs in Birmingham and in London.
Okay.
We are not even going to try to discuss this subject, I don't think.
It's too complicated.
I will put... So there's a really brilliant... There's loads of really good documentaries. I went down a bit of a deep dive on sort of the history of Ireland a little while ago, and there's loads of really good stuff on YouTube. And there is one called, I think it's The History of the Troubles, and it's a series. It was made by BBC, but I'm pretty confident it was made by BBC Ireland. So it's more from the perspective of the Irish as opposed to the English. And it is a really good programme, and I would recommend that everyone go and watch it. But I am not going to try and talk about this subject because, frankly, I don't think I'm clever enough to really weigh up how complex this is. And, frankly, I don't really want to get it wrong because I think that it's such a grey subject with so many different opinions and so many different people who are in the right, in inverted commas, and in the wrong, in inverted commas, and those two things don't really mean anything in this story.
I mean, I did a to frame how difficult I find this to understand and how complicated it is. I did a history A-level module on Ireland, and to this day I still can't explain everything because it's just so historical what leads up to IRA. It's just definitely go and learn about it and educate oneself, but I don't think we can describe it in 5 minutes. But it did start
I don't think I could describe it in 3 days, to be honest, but I definitely think it's something really interesting. Like I say, I'll put a load of stuff on the YouTube playlist about it, and I would push you to go and look at some of that stuff. I'd also suggest, although it would probably have been worth me finding the actual episodes, but the Blind Boy podcast, which I'm sure most people know of because it's very well known. He's done quite a lot of episodes on various points of Irish history, and a lot of them are really interesting. I don't think they're on YouTube, but if they are, I'll put them on the playlist as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
Slightly more easy to talk about, more just because it's fucking mental, is my favourite news story of all time, I think. And here it is. Patty Hearst, who was the daughter of a very rich media mogul and the granddaughter of an even richer media mogul, was kidnapped by the Symbionese Liberation Army, or the SLA, who were a really 60s-y anti-war, anti-government group of sort of anarchists. I'm not even sure they would have necessarily described themselves as anarchists, but they were very, 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 very left politically standing group. And they kidnapped the heiress of this massive fortune as a part of a bigger thing. They were quite similar to the Weather Underground or the Weathermen, who were still active in 1974 but did most of their actions in the late 60s and very early 70s. The Weathermen did a lot of bombs in a lot of places. It was against the Vietnam War largely, and just really real, like, serious 60s alternative politics that was coming out of the student body in places like Berkeley, San Francisco again.
Yeah.
Probably another reason why you wouldn't shake anyone's hand.
Yeah, you hippies.
But the really interesting thing about this story is, so Patty Hearst is kidnapped. They send a ransom note. The ransom note is fucking brilliant. You will have heard a little bit of it earlier, because one of the things they do is they make this really, really posh, unemotional media mogul stand up in front of the media and read out their demands, but as part of their demands he has to say things like death to the fascist pigs.
Yes!
They've also told me to say death to the fascist pigs.
Yeah!
And
It's so
listen,
fucking brilliant.
It's brilliant. But the really crazy thing about this story, and again, we're not going to be able to go into all of the details about it, but the really crazy thing about this story is that after a period of a few weeks, he refuses to. They ask him to do loads of stuff. They ask for a certain amount of money. They ask him to feed the poor.
Yeah.
He says it's going to cost something like $2 million, I think it was. And he says that he just doesn't have that sort of money, even though he's a multi-millionaire with a massive media conglomerate.
Yeah, well, that's it. They say do the food bank, and also it's £2 million to get your daughter back.
Yeah.
And do the food bank, which he did the food bank for a couple of weeks.
Well, the food bank was a disaster.
Well, it didn't work
basically.
out, did it?
Because he didn't do it properly, and so it was kind of just a sham, really.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they said things like, we want poor people to like eat really good foods. So
Yeah.
it has to be the type of food that you would have on your table. And of course,
It was
they
not.
bought them a bag of Monster Munch and a Tutti Frutti.
Tutti Frutti.
On Bungo.
On
That's what I was going for. So that was a disaster. So...
And I love that he refused. Like, sorry, I'm worth billions, but I
Yeah.
can't find $2 million to save my daughter. Sorry.
I mean, in fairness, first of all, he definitely wasn't worth billions, because no one was worth billions in 1974.
Yeah, true.
He would have been very rich, but in comparison to probably what we now consider very rich,
Yeah,
he
true.
$2 million would have been a big chunk of his money, I'm
Yeah.
sure. But it's
Yeah.
still, it is very weird that a man who is willing to enter into a discussion about saving his daughter's life,
Yeah.
which is superficially what it was, won't find that money. Anyway, the point is, the reason that this is such a brilliant news story is because over the course of time, Patty Hearst decides that actually she rather likes this Symbionese Liberation Army a bit,
Yeah.
and she starts robbing banks with them, and she becomes a member.
Yeah.
They release loads of again, these things are so fucking cool. They release loads of tapes to the media of them just like reading off their demands and
Yeah.
what they want and stuff. And so then she comes in and she changes her name, and she takes on a rank because they're an army.
Yeah.
And
I love it. There's a video of them robbing the bank, and that's what comes out and is famous. You see her on camera saying, "I'm Patty Hearst, motherfucker,"
Yeah.
holding a rifle at people, and you're just like, okay, she's not hiding in a cupboard, not being looked after.
No.
She's fully joined in. She's got her little Che Guevara style hat on.
Yeah. I mean, they were like they were proper like they were like comic book revolutionaries.
Yeah.
Looking at them now, but actually, in fairness, they were doing some really serious shit.
Yeah.
And there is, I feel like we've talked about the Weathermen before on this podcast, and there is something in the air in the late 60s and early 70s where these people, and it probably in a lot of ways, the IRA starting to bomb, it kind of sort of comes into this as well, in as much as there were people doing some really fucking extreme shit in the name of political, like, freedom.
Well, that's kind of what they said, wasn't it? The starting members are quoted as on this documentary that we watched, is saying Vietnam stuff's coming to an end, or people's uproar about it has kind of died out a bit. Kent State shootings is kind of forgotten about. That was like 4 years ago. And these people are angry because they feel like the majority of America is kind of just accepting now, like things have gotten a bit better, so maybe the government's not so bad. And they were of the opinion, like, actually, the same crooks are still trying to control you, and it's still capitalist, whatever.
I think because like the Weathermen certainly did this, and the Symbionese Liberation Army did this a little bit. Was like they were planting bombs in place. They were planting bombs in like police stations and stuff.
Yeah.
Which now seems like, well, I mean, it seemed really extreme then, but I mean, I think they're idea was probably to like shake people out of that, to do the most extreme things. And I think often, and again, I suppose it's like a nation at war again, it's like they're looking at people in Vietnam being killed and killing other people and saying, let's bring some of this stuff home. You know? And in a lot of ways, that's what 9/11 was too, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, obviously from an outside aid, but it's like, your country's been blowing the shit out of all of these brown people. Well, now these brown people are going to do something to you. You know?
Yeah.
And that doesn't make it right or anything. I'm not sort of saying that, but it's just, I think that's probably the sort of mindset in America at that time.
Yeah,
And as a
everything's
result-
happening overseas, so it's not connecting to the people.
Yeah.
They're just allowing it because it doesn't affect them.
Which, of course, is still happening now.
Yeah, of course,
But-
100%.
and we're not
More so
setting
than
bombs off and
ever.
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
The difference is that no one, no white people are really getting killed because there's all drones and stuff.
Well, yeah,
But-
exactly. We're not getting drafted anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess we don't, like, people don't think about war as even happening, whereas it's still just as shit. It's just happening in other places. So yeah, I guess I can see where their point of view was. I mean, they did go about it in a weird way, shooting random teachers. So that didn't help their cause, and thus loads of them end up getting arrested and put in prison. Apart from,
well, so this is in a sort of mirror to Richard Nixon's case in a lot of ways, and probably many other cases along these lines. Patty Hearst, of course, got away with all of this. So as soon as these people were actually caught, so they could not be found.
Yeah.
For over a year.
I think it's about 2 years.
Yeah. So they managed to hide out, and the weathermen were exactly the same. In fact, the weathermen and the weather underground were, I think they were basically on the run, hiding out. They were doing things like breaking Timothy Leary out of prison. And stuff. Even as late as like the mid-70s and stuff. They went without getting caught from, I think they formed in 1968 or 69, all the way through to like the 90s, I think, was when they all just gave themselves up. I mean, they'd stopped doing any action. But the Symbionese Liberation Army, a lot of them got killed in a standoff with police in a house, but Patty Hearst wasn't one of them. And then the remainders of them got caught. And when they got caught, she said, "Oh no, I was brainwashed and I was just doing I was just trying not to get killed." And got let off for the entire thing.
And she was having sex with, she was in a relationship with one of them. Maybe.
Well, no, she totally was. So we watched a movie about this, which is called Renegade. That is a really good film. It is on YouTube, but it's called something weird, and it like has the film and then it has the film backwards or something afterwards.
Yeah,
I think it's to try and get around copyright.
Put on twice so that the length is wrong. We can put it on the
we'll put
playlist,
it on the playlist. But there is a series that somebody made in America very recently, which is like a 6-part series, which is more about her and more about the sort of incident that happened, if you like. And it's brilliant, and I would recommend anybody to try and find that. I don't think that is on YouTube. But in that, they go into like how she was kept when she was kidnapped. And more or less what happened was they were all in one flat together and they just started having orgies. And she quite liked it, and she fell in love with one of them.
Yeah.
And so they had this like total sort of free love, hippy dippy thing going on. And so I mean, she unquestionably, they do a thing where, when that video that you mentioned about when they are robbing a bank, and they say that what she's saying to people is like, I think her lawyers argued that she was whispering to people to like go into the back room or something. But actually they got a bunch of deaf people. This is so 1974. They got a bunch of deaf people to read her lips, and like you say, she was saying things like, "I'm Patty Hearst, motherfucker."
But then she claims that she had a gun. You couldn't see it because it was off camera, but one of the others had a gun on her, and that the plan was if she didn't announce her name and like be a big part of it, that she would be shot herself. And it's all this absolute... I just think it's totally interesting because I feel like she is a woman that gets kidnapped because her dad's rich. Dad can't be bothered to pay for her, so I think she's a bit like, well, you know what? Fuck it. She was kidnapped originally. She probably was kept in a cupboard for about a day. And then she was like, you know what? My dad can't be asked to pay for me and he's got the money. These guys are actually all right and I don't disagree with them. I'm going to just go along for the love and the fun, and I get to shoot some guns, and I'll pretend that I'm really into this like anti-capitalist stuff. And then when it all falls apart, she'll be like, nah, actually I was never really that into it. And she definitely didn't stick up for those morals in the end anyway.
No,
they all go to prison, and she ends up in a John Waters movie. And is like she's on the Gabby Logan fucking show getting interviewed. And like, what was life like? She's like, oh, it's actually quite fun.
Well, I think that's the other thing, probably from her perspective, and I'm totally just painting this as a narrative, but it's probably true. You live in this kind of boring, upper class life.
Yeah.
She's got a boyfriend who's always on the telly. When she first gets kidnapped, he's constantly getting interviewed, and he's fucking dull as dishwater.
Yeah.
And then she meets these exciting, dangerous revolutionaries who are really doing something with their lives, almost no matter what it is. You can totally see someone like being like, what the fuck? This is amazing. These people are just having orgies and enjoying themselves and robbing banks. This is the most exciting thing in the world. This is way better than sitting at home with my dad talking about, current affairs.
Well, and she was 19, and these might have been, given her upbringing, these are probably the first people that had an interesting, proper point of view about humanity that she's ever going to come across, as opposed to Dad, who's like, we just need to be rich and we live this lifestyle that's, she would never have known any different. And we discussed this before about Stockholm Syndrome, as to whether the Stockholm Syndrome started with them or whether actually her capitalist life with her dad is actually a more accurate version of...
That's a very philosophical idea that we probably can't really...
Yeah, no, of course.
Right now, but in simple terms, when people end up in these sorts of situations and people say that's Stockholm Syndrome, or even to some extent that's brainwashing, it's like... we did talk about this, didn't we? In cults, I think, a few episodes ago. It's like... Yeah, but then also, aren't we all experiencing Stockholm Syndrome about whatever lives we are leading?
Yeah.
Because the idea is that you normalise yourself to your surroundings.
Yeah.
So I am currently suffering from Stockholm Syndrome because I have to deal with capitalism and a Tory government, and the need to stop at red lights. Like all of those things are just there's not really any different. It's just that the stimulus has changed into something else. And I would argue that stopping at red lights is much more boring than having an orgy.
Fair point, I should think.
So anyway, everybody, I encourage you to look into this wonderful case of Patty Hearst, and definitely watch this movie, Renegade. It's brilliant. A couple of just very quick news stories that I quite liked. Jack H. Hetherington made his cat, whose name is FDC Willard, the co-author of a paper he wrote because he had accidentally written we instead of I throughout the paper and couldn't be bothered to change it.
I fucking love that. Oh my god, I missed that. That is absolutely brilliant. So his cat wrote a paper.
Well, co-wrote.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Who calls their cat FDC Willard?
Our cat is called Clotworthy Skeffington, so you really don't have a chance.
Thanks to a Japanese marketing campaign in 1974 called Kirisumasu ni wa Kentucky, or Kentucky for Christmas, eating KFC chicken on Christmas has become a tradition in Japan, and over 3.6 million Japanese families eat KFC chicken on the holiday every year, which is something... We
talked about that in our Christmas one.
You've told me this so many times. Oh, did we talk about that? That's what I thought you were going to bring it up on this, but I didn't know we'd already discussed it.
No, there you go. Synchronicities.
We haven't even talked about any of the synchronicities that happened on this... There
is a few, isn't there?
So I might just throw in a synchronicity. I think we'll be done with news.
Do it.
We're going to move on to some cultural events.
Yeah.
It's a very minor cultural event. 2 weeks ago, we randomly... It genuinely is random.
Yeah.
Siobhan always talks about this hummus pot, but it is Timebot 500. Picked the year 1974. And a couple of days later, we went to a bookshop in St Leonard's called The Bookkeeper.
Very good.
If you're local, I'd very much recommend it. It's a wonderful place.
Beautiful.
And I found a book called The Mind Map Book, which is about trying to make your memory better. So I thought I'll buy this mind map book. I'll have a little look. It's only a couple of pounds. Quite interesting. Written by a guy called Tony Burzon. And I'm starting to, the more I talk about this, the less I feel like it's going to wow anybody with the synchronicity, because there was another synchronicity that was much bigger than this, but I still think this was a big one. So I got the book home. On the first page, it says what else he's done, and it said he made a TV show called Use Your Head. And I thought, oh, that's cool. Maybe I'll just watch it. I'll see if that's on YouTube, because I always do. And it's easier to watch TV programmes than it is read a book.
Yeah.
So I put on YouTube, put on Use Your Head. I was surprised. The book is written in like 2000 or something, so I thought it was like a current thing.
Yeah.
It's even published by the BBC, so I figured this programme was going to be, from 2000.
Yeah.
Turned it on. Fucking programmes from 1974.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it blew my mind.
It did.
So I bring that up partly because it's actually quite a cool programme. There's like a 2.5 hour long thing on YouTube, which I will put on the playlist. It's extremely 1974, I guess.
It's the dude drawing on a blackboard having a great time.
I think it must have been like an Open University style program that was probably on in the middle of the night or something. The budget probably wasn't very big. He's not probably the best presenter in the world, and from what I can make out, he's doing it. It's not live as such, but they didn't have enough film in the camera to. If he gets the words wrong, he just has to go and then say it again. It's wonderful to watch. It is trippy as fuck. It's really trippy. There's bits in it, so it's just this totally normal, like, little English man, very sort of a bit posh, talking about his new mind map science. That
he's got a nice jumper on.
He's got a nice where he changes on each episode. So he's talking about this sensible stuff, and it is all quite cool. Like, his ideas are pretty good, and taught me a couple of techniques that I might use in the future. But like at one point, he's talking about these, and then he'll just say, "Take a couple of minutes to try and do this activity," and then he'll go, "And while you do it, the mind's eye will be watching you." And then this weird, like, neon eye just comes up on the screen, like really bad sort of Doctor Who style special effects, and just watches you for 2 minutes, and then you go back. The entire series starts with this brilliant thing, which I don't think it's supposed to mean this, where it shows like a 70s dude having a picnic, and the point of it is to try and show you that your brain has like billions and billions of different receptors in it. But the way that they show you that is by saying, "This is you having a picnic." And then they come out and it shows that like he's in a field. So he says, "There's 1 million pieces of grass in this field." And then it goes one further out and then there's like loads of fields. So he says, "There's 500 fields." And then it goes out and goes out and goes out and it goes into the stars. And it like basically says, you are nothing. I don't think it means to say that, but it just says, "Here's you having a picnic. Now look how completely pointless you are." by showing more and more and more of the universe. It's so...
That sounds fantastic.
Fucking brilliant.
Aww.
I think thinking about it is much better than the experience of sitting down and watching it, I must say. But I would encourage anybody to have a little peep at it.
Well, is that on YouTube? We can pop it on the playlist.
It is definitely on YouTube.
Fantastic.
And it's definitely going on the playlist.
Fantastic.
Another cultural event that happened in 1974 was that the Yugoslavian performance artist Marina Abramovic stood still for 6 hours. No,
wow.
It's slightly more interesting than that. We watched a documentary about Marina Abramovic called The Artist is Present.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it didn't really have a great deal of information about this artwork in 1974.
It mentioned it.
Very
and that was
briefly.
it.
So most of what we have to say about her isn't really specifically about this, but I figured it'd be interesting anyway.
Yeah.
But the artwork that she did in 1974 is actually really interesting. So she stood still for 6 hours and she invited the audience to basically do anything to her that they wished.
Yeah.
And there was a number of different things on a table, some of which were like pleasurable things, some of which were unpleasant things, some of which would cause pain, some of which would cause pleasure. And I would almost go as far as to call it an experiment.
Yeah.
Started with people feeling very awkward about it and sort of not going anywhere near her, and there was a lot of people just sort of milling around. Then to begin with, people started doing quite nice things, and then as the time went on, what they found was that people were doing more and more and more horrible shit.
Yeah.
Basically.
They did things like cut up her clothes.
Yeah, they cut all of her clothes off. They stuck rose thorns in her stomach. One person aimed a gun at her head and somebody else came and took it away. And the atmosphere in the room became very aggressive. And so just this is the sort of thing that Marina Abramovic does. Most of her artwork is all sort of performance art. And obviously in 1974, performance art is still relatively new, certainly in a populist way. And she does, all of her stuff is based around her or her and somebody else for a while.
Yeah.
And their bodies. And she uses a lot of nudity, she uses a lot of, like, she cuts herself.
Yeah, it's quite aggressive what she does.
There's elements of that.
Or, like, maybe not aggressive, but violent.
Yeah.
It's very violent.
The very interesting thing about the artwork that she did in 1974 is that after those 6 hours, she stood up. So the idea was that everything that anybody did to her, she didn't react in any way. So the idea was that the people that were doing all of these things could do it without any like consequence. And so it was like to see what boundaries they would push if they could do anything that they wanted. And obviously it turned out that humans are fucking arseholes.
Yep.
Surprise, surprise. But after 6 hours, she then stood up and walked at the audience. And, of course, everybody ran
They
away and
fucking
was
ran.
really scared. So, I mean, I don't know if that just sort of sums up the human condition in a lot of
100%.
ways. But, yeah, so we watched this film, The Artist is Present, which is set in just within the last couple of years. And she was celebrating, I want to say, 50th anniversary.
I think it's 40 years. It was in 2012, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she did a big art exhibition in the MoMA, I can't think what that stands for, but in New York.
Museum of Modern Art.
Museum of Modern Art, yeah. I was trying to remember what the O was, that's really bad.
Of.
And it was, yeah, no. And it was like a retrospective, but one where, I mean, she's 60-something at this point, and she's like, I can't do all of the art myself, so she trains 30 other performers to recreate some of her old performance arts, including two people standing a person distance away from each other in a doorway, and people, the only way you can get through the doorway is to squeeze through them.
Oh, they were naked.
And they're naked. Everyone's naked in this. And it's good because she says it's a bit about her ego giving it over to other people, but she still does an art piece called The Artist is Present, which is her sat on a chair every day for 3 months. And there's a chair opposite her, and basically the audience, one by one, can sit in front of her, and she will just stare at you. And the idea is that she won't react either. Or she reacts a bit, but the point is that she doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
She just sits there.
There's some really tacky shit bits where things
gosh,
like
yeah.
her ex-husband sits down and then they both start crying.
Yeah.
There is some rubbish there. So, I mean, I don't think we can go through her entire career, really, but I would say that I think performance art, and particularly this sort of performance art, is not for everybody.
No.
I think that a lot of the stuff that she did was really, really interesting. She did a lot of work with her ex-husband, Olaf, and they did loads of stuff about, like, male-female relationships. They're definitely not going to be repeated anytime in 2022.
No.
But they did a lot of stuff where they would just stand and slap each other.
Yeah,
there was stuff
run
where they
into
were
each other.
running into each other and stuff. There was a lot of, like... There was a lot of stuff about... Again, we can't really go into this because, I mean, each of these things could do with half an hour's worth of discussion. But, yeah, you know, there was a lot of stuff about, like, the toil that they put on their bodies.
Yeah.
What that led to was kind of what the art was.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, a lot of people will probably think that this is a load of shit, and that's fair enough. I really quite liked... I'm not particularly into performance art, but I really quite liked some of the stuff that she did.
Yeah.
But... in the movie...
she is...
I don't think that she's aware... Well, I can't really decide. There's a part of me that thinks that she's completely unaware of the fact that she's made quite good art, like that it was just chance or something, because she's such a buffoon. And I suppose this kind of goes without saying, because her art is all about herself.
Yeah.
So there is a certain level, by default, you can't make that sort of art without being quite egocentric, or without thinking in an egocentric way when you're making that art. And so she is a very, I think, egotistical person.
Yeah.
And she does, like, look at her performance as this incredible thing that she's doing. And we had a discussion about this, which I don't think we totally agreed on, but one of the things before this artwork that she did where she just sat on a chair all day for 3 months, don't get me wrong, sitting on a chair and staring at someone all day for 3 months is a big chunk of, you know, it's quite it's an impressive feat on some level. But they were talking about it like it was torturous, like it was arduous. And particularly compared to, like, some of her earlier artworks, where there was one where I think she just whipped herself on the back for, like, 4 hours or something. Like, she used to do stuff, and obviously she is older now, so it's fine, but she used to do stuff that was really pushing the limitations of what a human body could do. But they were talking about her sitting in a chair in the same way as doing all this other stuff that she had been doing in the past. And it just seemed like, I don't know, that's the point where she just seemed to be so far up her own arse. And I think that the artwork that she did where she sat down and stared at people is really effective. I don't think the artwork is bad. It was just that maybe it was just seeing behind the scenes of an artist. I don't know. Maybe everybody's just an arsehole if you go behind the scenes. But
well, I think she's an interesting... I mean, again, we can't talk about her for too long, but she's an interesting person in as much as she came from absolutely nothing, and she speaks very openly about the fact that her family, whilst she had a nice upbringing, she was shown no affection and no love. So it doesn't take too much of a psychoanalyst to realise, hello, I have this massive... You know, I have this need to be liked and appreciated because I received nothing as a child. And then she has really meagre, surroundings for years. Her and her partner doing the performance art travel around in a van, and they don't have anything for so long, even though they start earning money. And then she kind of feeds this need hugely beyond her art when she realises she's got money, and she starts getting all her plastic surgery, shopping in posh designer shops, and she just decides
having really expensive clothes.
Yeah, she's like, now I'm going to be the artist, sort of thing, and just live the life because I can, and I haven't been. And then I think that's where she just gets full reign to be full crazy person, because to her credit, she is so incredibly kind of strong-willed and does just insane things to herself with no fear. Being so naked. She really doesn't see nudity as a thing. So she's naked for all of this stuff, pretty much. Apart from the recent one. But up until then, I think they showed one that she couldn't have been much younger. And she's still nude, and she's not afraid to be, getting out and about and doing all these, really... she puts the onus on you to accept it. She's just gonna, and that's kind of the point of one of the points of her thing, isn't it? Is I'm gonna do this thing that's gonna make you feel so uncomfortable, but know that I'm not uncomfortable. I'm just gonna do it. Or even if I am, that's part of it. But the point is, I want you to feel something, whether it's uncomfortable or interested. I guess compared to what she's done, that sitting down for ages isn't that big of a deal.
On a comfortable cushion.
Yeah, but she's on a chair that has a little drawer for pooping in. If she should,
she never pooped in it though.
She never did. No.
but here's the ultimate thing that I think we can both agree on. Because I totally agree with you. From the perspective of the artwork, you are 100% right. I'm not really talking about the artwork because again, I think it's good. It's more the person behind the artwork, I suppose.
Yeah.
And she herself has said, "I am now the artwork."
Yeah.
So therefore, if she's an arsehole, then that's a part of the artwork. But the reason that I mostly bring this up is because halfway through this film, when she's doing this Museum of Modern Art thing, for some reason she ends up drinking some wine with David Blaine, the idiot illusionist, who I'm pretty sure we've talked about on this podcast. We did on the last Timecop episode. In fact, he was in a glass box.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah.
And he suggests that he's going to do some sort of an illusion whereby he'll not saw her in half, but more or less
come at her with an axe.
Yeah, the modern equivalent of just a really tacky magician's illusion.
Yeah.
And she gets really into this idea, and she says to her manager, "God, don't you think it would be amazing if this incredible person, who is, by the way, again, David Blaine, would, do some of his... It would be really effective in my art.
He'll come in and bludgeon me with an axe and then leave, and then I'll be left on the floor bleeding, and no one will know if it was real or not."
But that was the bit where first of all, everyone will know it's not real because it's fucking David Blaine with the axe. So that immediately... But also, it's just so culturally deaf to anything remotely artistic. Just here's a complete fucking idiot I've met who can do something which is basically a parlour trick. Let me include this in my life's exhibition as part of this artwork, which is basically just me showing you all of this incredible art that I've done in the past. I know what I'll do. Midway through, I'll get David Blaine in to hit me with an axe. Do you know what I mean? It's like Fugazi getting Eddie Van Halen in to do a solo in the middle of one album without explaining it.
And now it's Eddie Van Halen. I love the manager's reaction because she's and I think it does speak a lot for her because she basically is someone who just gets carried away with things. So someone's come in and been slightly impressive to her, and she's forgotten what her art is about and gone, "Yeah, fucking brilliant, that sounds great." Gone to manager, "Don't you think this is great?" And he goes, "Marina, your entire premise is about truth and realism and showing people what is real. So David Blaine coming in and pretending to hack you with an axe is the last thing you should do."
That's exactly what I'm trying to say, though. It's the fact that she doesn't realise that. It's the fact that she needs to go to her manager or her art dealer or whatever, and for him to say, "No, that isn't a good idea." Because again, art is her life. And so now a part of her art is, I would like David Blaine to do an illusion on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then she goes, then he says, "Don't do that." And she goes, Oh, okay, I won't do that then.
Of
Like,
course,
she's
but-
so...
Yeah.
I think that's really telling of her. And it did give you a kind of behind the scene of...
She's
have
an
you
idiot.
what you said? Have you accidentally made really good art? Like, something about her personality means she can go through with it. So the practicalities of it is definitely hers and hers to own. But all of the cleverness that comes out of it is it kind of the afterthoughts and the lucky things, I think.
Yeah.
Especially in this latest one, which is I'm going to sit down and see what happens. But the art is I'm going to see what happens. And, you know, she says if I find it difficult and I stand up, then I stand up. Some woman comes in and drops her trousers and she gets shuffled off and just is what it is.
Oh God, I mean that's the other thing. Yeah, all of the people that go and see her are so desperate.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm going to become a part of this art, and it's like
Yeah.
you've opened the door on this. Now a load of fucking morons
Yeah.
are coming in and deciding that they are also art, and they're going to make a name for themselves.
Yeah.
So one of them puts a mask on, and it's just like, ugh, and then gets like thrown out the door by
Yeah.
security. It's like, fuck off, everyone.
Exactly. It does show everyone. It does really show some truth in everyone else. But anyway, that's not even the one that came in 1974. The 74 one is very clever and very interesting.
I mean, I'd never heard of her before, and I'm glad.
No.
I'm glad that I did through this. And I mean, the documentary is good. It's
yeah,
worth
it's
watching.
definitely interesting.
Definitely, but yeah, and she's quite a cool.
I quite
a cool
like her.
person.
Yeah.
But it was just that bit anyway.
Yeah.
We need to move on because we're going on so long already. I knew this was going to happen. So just a couple of really quick ones. Stephen King released Carrie in 1974, which is his first book, and also went and stayed in the hotel that
Hotel Stanley?
that gave him the inspiration for The Shining.
Yeah.
The Hotel Stanley was covered by the knobheads who did Helter, which was a program that we covered on this podcast ages ago. I can't remember. If you haven't listened to that episode, go and you're interested in ghosts and idiots who are interested in ghosts, then you might want to go back and listen to that one.
you should go watch it anyway because it's fucking brilliant.
But yeah, so that was Stephen King launching his career. Another book that was released was Helter, Skelter by Vincent Bugliosi, who was the prosecuting attorney against Charles Manson, who also perjured himself and made lots of other people perjure themselves on the stand in order to... I talked about this on the podcast before. I read a really good book called Chaos, which is not a conspiracy book, but does get involved in some of the conspiracies around Charles Manson. But one of the things that is unquestionable is that Vincent Bugliosi, who, like I say, is the prosecutor who got Manson and the whole Manson family life in prison and the death penalty and what have you, is one of the dodgiest people in the world, is a total liar, total swindler, terrible, terrible human being, who made lots and lots of money about writing up a theory that he basically decided was the case about Charles Manson without there really being any evidence, and then just forced people to lie on his behalf. And that's how they all ended up on death row.
Oh.
Not to say that they were innocent by any means. They were not innocent and they should have been, but it's the whole Helter Skelter premise, which was sort of existed, but this idea that Charles Manson wanted to start a race war and was using mind control over these people and all of this sort of stuff just wasn't ever proven, but he proved it by way of lying.
Just telling everyone to say it.
But more importantly, he made shitloads of money off of this whole thing by then writing it up in a best-selling book. He was really dodgy, did lots of really dodgy things in his life, and is now thankfully dead. And also Philippe Petit, that is not how you say it at all. I'm going to do it again. Philippe Petit did a high wire walk between the two twin towers in New York, and that is truly one of the most amazing feats you will ever see in your life. If you haven't seen it, please, for the love of God, go and watch the movie Man on Wire.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely brilliant. It came out in 2008, and it's just a documentary film about this guy's life a little bit, but mostly just about the sort of preparation that went into walking on a tightrope across from one twin tower to the other.
Oh God, my stomach went so much.
Yeah, the documentary is incredible. It's really well made. And I think it just does a really good job. There's loads of footage of them preparing for it, and there's loads of footage of them when they're up there, which is, in of itself, like, it is something that is just worth seeing because it's incredible that someone's done it. But also just the sort of life that this guy particularly, but him and all of his mates, like, led in order to get them to a place where they could actually do this. Like, it's seen as just this crazy man went up the Twin Towers and walked across it on a tightrope, and that's incredible. But actually, when you watch this film, the whole story running up to it and his attitude to life, his like fearlessness, and it's just such an incredible movie, and he's such an
really
incredible
good.
person. There's a brilliant bit when the police get up there and they're trying to tell him to come off, and he sort of walks to the edge, puts his arms out, and they go to like put handcuffs on him, and then he just runs back out into the middle
because
and
he
stuff.
dances up there, doesn't
He's
he?
fucking jumping on it and all sorts. He
Oh
doesn't give a
god,
fuck.
I'm getting flashbacks.
It
It's
is
fucking horrible.
Unbelievable.
Oh my
unbelievable
gosh.
footage to watch, and a brilliant film. So you
Yay.
should absolutely definitely watch that.
Something happened this year. Someone called Ian Ball attempted to kidnap Princess Anne. He shoots their bodyguard, chauffeur, and a bystander. He then asks her to get out of the car, and she responded, "Not bloody likely." And I just, I don't know. There's something kind of
what a
awful
cad.
about it. I love it. Not bloody likely. It just sounds so fucking horribly British, but I do like the idea of watching everyone get shot around you and you're going, fuck off. I'm not getting out of the car.
Well, I think that's the end of news and cultural affairs. So I think we're going to have to wake up Timebot 500.
I am asleep.
I know you're asleep. I know you're getting on a bit. So we are now going to play your favourite, my favourite, Siobhan's favourite game, which is called Shove Them Back In or Let Them Live. Are we ready?
Yes.
So in this game, we look at all of the people that were born in the year 1974, and we have to make a decision as to whether we would shove them back in or let them live. So Timebot 500 at random, if you could provide us with some of the people that were born in 1974.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Is that Leonardo DiCaprio?
I think that was Leonardo
Oh,
DiCaprio.
he's a wonderful human being. Of course we let him live.
I would have definitely let him live up until the point that he made Don't Look Up. And if anybody wants to know our opinions of Don't Look Up, you're going to have to join our Patreon and listen to the last of our extra episodes when we discuss the movie at length. The movie was a piece of shit.
He is the one redeeming factor. So
I mean, he gets.
I mean, it's
brought
complete
down.
horseshit.
He gets brought down with the lot, but I would let him live despite that.
He's a brilliant human being. I would definitely Leonardo DiCaprio, love him. Can't go wrong.
I think also he meant well when he made that film.
Yeah.
But he should have been sensible enough to look at the script and say, whilst I agree with the politics of this film, unfortunately, this script is horseshit. All right, next one. Oh, Nelly.
The rapper Nelly.
Yeah.
With his
The
little
rapper
plaster
Nelly
on his face.
So I was going to ask, that was my first question.
Yeah.
He is the rapper with the plaster on his face.
100% let him live.
What, did he do the thong song?
No, that's Disco.
Isn't it? What songs did
He
Nelly
did.
do?
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, no, dead. Put him back in.
No!
Definitely put him back in.
No. He did Country Grammar, which is a nice song. He's staying alive. I love him. Right. I mean, I don't love him. Sorry. I am culturally slightly okay. Rob Williams, as in Robbie Williams.
That was definitely supposed to be Robbie Williams.
Oh, I mean, my life wouldn't be ruined if Take That and he didn't exist. So,
we're shoving him back in, aren't we? So he would never have done any of his work. I think that, in fairness, if Robbie Williams had been shoved back in, somebody else would have got his place and Take That. And I do feel like he's probably, I mean, it's not a high bar.
No, he's the good one.
He's probably the best one.
Yeah, no, he is.
No, I don't know. Maybe that one. Maybe
the
that
little one.
No, the one with the pierced eyebrow that played drums on Smells Like Teen Spirit. Is it Howard Donald or Orange? It might be Orange.
When they did their cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit. Oh my god.
Whichever one played the drums on that can definitely live. He's the best
it the one of them's in EastEnders, isn't he? Oh no, he's not. No, that's
anyway.
Robbie
Williams. Robbie Williams. Are we going to keep him alive?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, go on. Yeah, well, I don't hate him, so yeah, let him live.
I'm shoving him back in.
Oh,
sorry, Mrs. Williams. His head's probably really fucking big.
Yeah, I think he has got quite a large head.
Steve
Who? Steve Pooh.
Let me try that again.
Steve-O.
As in the, you say his name like he's Devo, but Steve-O from
Steve
Jack Oz.
the man who staples lots of things to himself.
Yeah.
I mean, culturally, does Jackass need to exist? He definitely was one of the main ones. I feel like he had a weird life. Something happened to him in the more recent last 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about him, though.
All right, cool. Do you want him to live or not?
Oh, yeah, go on.
Why?
I can't make these people die.
What good has he ever done to the world?
I mean, he's not the worst one in Jackass.
But that doesn't mean he should live. Shouldn't they all be put down? It doesn't mean
he should die.
Haven't they just made a new Jackass movie?
They have. Someone put something up recently that was like, I don't know, the Foo Fighters are still really big, and Jackass has made a movie, and I don't know, and it just says, is this 2001? What's happening?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think Jackass, I don't know the exact dates. I know they started much earlier because they were in skate videos or made skate videos, didn't they? In
Yeah.
like 90s or something. But I feel like Jackass is very much in that horrible spot between 99 and 2002. I feel like it kind of sums up the culture of the time, where it's literally like, you know that Idiocracy, that film Idiocracy, where somebody goes into the future and no clever people have made babies and only stupid people have made babies. And so the world is like it is now, pretty much. It was made about 20 years ago. It was probably made in that time. And the biggest show on TV, which is shown 24 hours a day on all networks, is called Ow My Balls. And basically just people getting kicked in the balls. I feel like Jackass is literally that.
It's 100% that.
In real life.
I can still see him stapling things to his testicles.
It's like what American Gladiators wasn't shit enough for you. Didn't
Here's Steve-O swallowing loads of milk and then like setting a firework up off his arse and throwing up everywhere. I think that's all that Jackass is.
1974
all right, kill him.
Was a terrible year for births.
Oh.
Find us a good one.
Oh,
I said a good one.
Fuck right off. I've got serious beef with this twat.
You got beef with Bear?
Well, it's just an absolute... I've only watched maybe 5 minutes of a programme once because... with him in it, not any programme. Because I was like, who is Bear Grylls? He's on telly. And basically, it was him in a desert going, right, guys, this is what you need to do if you're ever stuck in the desert, because this is, how you're going to survive. First of all, you take your T-shirt off and you piss on it. And he pees on his T-shirt and then wraps it around his mouth.
Did you see his dick?
No, I don't remember seeing his dick.
Oh, rubbish.
So he's peed on his T-shirt and wrapped it around his face and says, this will help you feel like you're hydrated. Because you'll have moisture on your mouth, and that moisture is your own piss.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I think you keep replenishing this with your piss as you go through the day. And then he goes on the hunt.
Wouldn't it make more sense just to drink the piss? Why are you wasting piss?
I don't know. Well, you haven't got a receptacle to drink it out of, but you do have a T-shirt that you can.
You can get yourself in a position
that
allows you to piss in your own mouth.
This T-shirt comes in handy for drinking later. So then he goes, and he's like, "Oh my god, I found a tree. If I dig up, I'll find some water." Doesn't find any water, but buries a stone that in the morning he licks frantically to try and get the dew off of it. And that hasn't worked, so he's still really thirsty. And then he's like, holy shit, I found a camel. Brilliant. Guts this camel.
Is the camel dead already? Or
The camel's dead. The camel's dead. And he finds this camel, scoops out the innards of his bowels, wraps it in his pissy T-shirt, squeezes it and drinks all the liquid that comes out of this poo, and then puts the T-shirt back on his face. But the whole time there's a cameraman watching him who's probably got a bottle of water, and he just doesn't need to do any of this. Just for the sake of it, he's drinking poo.
It was proved that
through
it was
his
all
pissy
fake,
T-shirt.
wasn't it? It was proved that it was fake.
I think so.
Well, I don't know if they all
I don't
were,
know.
or whether there was just one, but there was. I definitely remember that he was caught out with like loads of bottles of Evian or something. I can't remember.
But it's just watching this man say this is what you need to do to survive and doing drastic things that no one will ever have to do, because no person watching this TV from the safety of their home is going to put themselves in a desert drinking camel poo.
Yeah, but
he didn't have to because there was a whole camera crew there.
But you could argue that about every single television programme that's being made. I mean, we're literally, again, sorry, not to get overly philosophical, but like, no one's going to make any of the food that they watch being made on the TV either, but they all fucking watch it. No one's going to go to the places that they watch on, Wish You Were Here.
Yeah,
definitely doesn't exist anymore.
But there's something about Jackass idiots doing it because they know it's pure entertainment and it's stupid. He's doing it because he's saying one day this will be necessary for you to do, and it's not. And it wasn't necessary for him to do it either. And he's a fucking moron. And I hate Bear Grylls. And I'm glad he's dead. He's not dead, but if we could make this game real, he would be dead because I'd be shoving him all the way back in.
Just to say, I definitely shove him back in. I'm just playing devil's advocate just to wind you up. Do you think his name's really Bear?
Yes.
Oh,
he's got all those like weird rubbish methods of getting by, like and shooting and stuff that comes from Posh. So he probably is called Posh. He's called Bear.
Posh. He's Posh Grills.
Posh Grills.
Like Victoria Beckham. Oh, well, who would have thunk it?
Definitely Liv.
Yeah?
Yeah? She's
Why?
a Spice Girl.
God, I went high then. Why?
I like the Spice Girls. They can live.
She's the most useless one that didn't do anything in the Spice Girls, right?
True, but
what has
for
she
the time
ever
that she was in, she needed
done?
to be there.
Give me one thing of worth in the entire life of what is
Did she
now,
do that?
40...
Didn't she do that song with Dave Bowers? That was really bad.
That does not. That does not. Yeah, I know
not.
Dave Bowers from Blue.
I know Dave. No.
No. What's he from? He's from something.
Is he called Level 42? Is he
Yeah.
from there?
No, not Level 42.
No.
No. It was
Another level. Another level. That's it.
Not
No,
Level
it's not
42.
Well, we're very good. Well, she was.
Dave Bowers on the drums of Level 42 there.
I mean, she
playing
did.
the paradiddle.
No, she was in Spice Girls. Spice Girls was silly and, didn't exactly give a massive message, but I enjoyed them as a child.
Oh,
and I liked Posh Spice.
Your argument is not a good argument.
I'm not killing her.
All right, well, I'm shoving her straight back in to Mrs. Beckham. Let's do one last one.
One last one.
Matt Hardy.
Oh, Matt Hardy!
Matt Hardy,
I mean,
wrestler
the lesser
from
of the two Hardys.
the Hardy Boys, who is now in AEW.
And he has a brother called Jeff Hardy.
Has got a brother called Jeff. If only one Hardy brother could live, then what are we doing with Matt Hardy? I mean, I know the answers.
I mean, we're shoving him back in because Jeff Hardy needs to exist. But, I mean, with, wealth of work, Matt Hardy has produced the most, given that the other one's, an alky, druggy, and isn't always working. But Jeff Hardy had the better outfit.
But so
and
here's
the sideburns.
Something. There's something about this. I suppose it's just when they come of age, right?
Yeah.
I guess if you were born in 1974, this makes perfect sense. You were at your most famous in the worst period of cultural history.
Yeah.
So the Hardy Boys both wore
net arm, fishnet arm things. Net tank tops.
Had their stubble shaved into arrows and stuff. Probably had their
cargo
eyebrows
trousers.
done. And I feel like loads of these people that were born in this time, they would have all just been of the age where it's I know what I'll do. I'll get some cornrows.
Yeah. But Jeff Hardy did that cool dance that I'm doing at you, but no one else will see that I'm doing.
They can all hear the chair that you're on.
Well, it's really good. It's a really good dance. But we're not deciding between the two, so he definitely lives.
I agree. I think this might be the only person who was born in 1974. Maybe I suppose DiCaprio can live.
You're shoving all the others away.
Matt Hardy is my second person I allow to live.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy, as is his brother.
Shall we move on?
Yes.
Timebot 500, if you could introduce our next category, please.
It's time for the music quiz. So, where was the Eurovision Song Contest held this year and who won?
1974. I don't know, but I'm going to say it was held in the Netherlands and Lulu won.
Oh, you must be a year out.
Oh.
Because it was held in Britain at Brighton Dome, just down the corner, down the road, down the corner. And who won? It was Abba with Waterloo. It was their first song. So who would have won to get it here? Was it Lulu?
I think Lulu would have won it in the 70s, I'm almost certain.
Yeah, so she must have won it year before.
But in fairness, I think it could have been Bucks Fizz.
Maybe.
I do think that the UK won it, or
well.
Britain or whatever, won it quite a lot.
Yeah, but not now. We are disliked and shit. Okay, Grand Funk Railroad hit number 1 with The Locomotion this year.
Oh.
But they weren't the first to do it and they weren't the last. Who was the original one that sang it in 1962?
I have no idea. I know it was Kylie Minogue in 1980, whatever.
Oh, 1988, well done.
Okay, there you go. I thought Grand Funk Railroad were a bit more classy than The Locomotion, to be honest. I had absolutely no idea. I don't know. Is it someone I would know? Adam Faith?
No, it's someone called Little Eva. But it was pretty much their only song. But her version of it is the absolute best. Someone this year sang Remember Me This Way. It was a slow ballad, which was unusual for them. It got to number 3. And they would rather be remembered this way and not how they are now remembered.
Oh, it's got to be Glitter.
It is!
Yeah. Sorry. You gave it away with the last bit. I knew Gary Glitter had an early song that went on the charts. Yes.
Yeah, and the Glitter Band abandoned him this year.
Sorry, I've just one very quick bit. Going back to that Tony Burzan thing, that crazy 70s programme that I watched, there's a brilliant bit where he talks about music.
Oh, yeah.
And again, as opposed to the eye looking at you, he shows a bunch of musicians.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And of course, it's a lot of it starts off with classical musicians and people playing the oboe and all this sort of stuff. And then it obviously thinks to itself, we better put something modern on there. 2 images come up. Savile, followed by Glitter.
He smashed it. Oh, this poor man. There was, going back to Eurovision, there was a Portuguese Eurovision entry that had some political influence. How?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Well, I don't know what the entry was because I didn't write it down, but when it was played on the radio in Portugal, people felt so united by it because the state in Portugal at that time was like really authoritarian and awful, and it started a revolution. So they played it on the radio and everyone started revolting, and political change.
There you go. You know, the same thing happened when Take That played Smells Like Teen Spirit at the Brits.
I found my musical calling. I didn't know that I liked music, and then that happened, and oh god, it is bad. All right, one more question. Steve Miller Band did The Joker this year, which is a terrible song.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote some lyrics at you.
Oh.
Some people call him the Space Cowboy. Some people call him the Gangster of Love. What would some other people call him? What was the name?
Oh, first of all, I didn't know he was called the Gangster of Love. So
do you remember it? Some people call me the Space Cowboy.
No, I know. Yes, it doesn't go. Keep in mind there's going to be blockbuster music playing underneath as well. So that's going to sound horrible. Oh God, I'm a winner. I'm a winner.
But it's
before that. I'm a toker. I don't know.
Some people call me Maurice.
Oh. Sorry, please. Can we have that
I'm
again?
never doing that again.
Please, once more.
No. But the answer was Maurice. It does a really weird thing in the song. I swear it does, and I'm not mad. And that's definitely the end of the quiz.
You're fucking mad.
Oh,
well, time about 500 disagrees.
Right, you are mad.
Okay, we're going to start as we always do. Well, you know, as we've done the last two times, with the top 20 singles.
Yeah.
Now, something interesting that I noticed in the top 20 singles, not that interesting really, but in comparison to the other two times that we've done this, is that the American charts and the English charts are completely fucking different.
Yeah, wildly different.
So I was kind of under the impression that this was a time of like proper like 70s glam, and when I looked in America, of course, not a single one of them bands, apart from Gary Glitter,
he turned up.
Really popped up at all. Yeah. So we've gone this time. I think usually we use maybe the world or something, but this time we're using just the UK. Unfortunately, it starts. Most of these songs I know, but it starts with two that I don't. So this is going to be great radio.
Oh, I think we're looking at different lists. This is exciting.
So it starts with Sylvia with her song "Y Viva España." The only thing I've never heard this song in my life, nor do I want to. But the only interesting thing I've got to tell you is that Sylvia's surname is Vrethhammer. And she is a Swedish daughter of Harold Vrethhammer.
Oh, well, there
and
you
Britta
go.
Vrethhammer.
And is that number 20?
That's number 20.
Fantastic, I'm the right way around.
And then we've got Charlie Rich with The Most Beautiful Girl, which I believe is not Could You Be
the
Most Beautiful.
That's Prince, isn't it?
Oh, of course it's Prince.
Yeah. I don't know, could be the same.
So the first two are rubbish, but then we get into the really good stuff. So then we've got, well, not really. So then we've got the Stylistics with You Make Me Feel Brand New.
Pretty nice.
Stylistics were like one of those bands who were...
I feel like your mum likes.
Oh, no.
Oh!
So they're not genuine enough, even for her.
Ooh.
So the Stylistics were almost like... I was going to say the Pat Boone of... But that's not fair, because they're not white. But the Stylistics are... like a really soft version of, let's say, like Motown type stuff, but really like
what
almost
Schwaddy
lounge.
Waddy is to glam.
Kind of, yeah. I don't know.
Fakey.
I don't know enough about glam. You're going to teach me about glam on this.
Well,
episode
Schwaddy Waddy is not glam.
Oh,
I do fucking love Schwaddy Waddy. I
yeah.
don't know why.
But yeah, the Stylistics, they're just sort of like an easy listening version of like really good music, and they're all right. They've got some good stuff. It's not their best. Then at number 17, we've got the Wombles with the Wombling Song.
Fucking brilliant.
This is the second hit of the Wombles had in 1974. If you go down a little way,
they do the Christmas
they also
one.
do Remember You're a Womble.
Oh,
and I think they also do a Christmas Wombling or something.
Yeah,
but that one's not in the chart.
Maybe
that might be a different year. So the Wombles were massive. Back then,
I love the UK chart as opposed to the American, because the American one's got loads of like soul and like interesting music, but still not what I thought came out in the 70s. And then the UK one is like the odd bit of glam, joke bands, and the Wombles.
Yeah, I think when we get onto like the albums that came out in 1974. In comparison to the fucking Wombles and the Wombling thing, there's not. Yeah, you wouldn't have thought they came from the same world, really. At number 16, you've already mentioned it, Abba with Waterloo.
Of course.
So I didn't realise that it had won the Eurovision Song Contest. It's kind of mad.
It's their first song.
It's a bit mad that a song that won the Eurovision Song Contest actually got into the UK charts. That certainly hasn't happened for a good few decades.
It's because it's a banger.
No, of course, but I mean, it's I suppose also. a band from the Eurovision Song Contest in the modern times would not have the career afterwards that ABBA had.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's just not really any way that I can see that happening.
No, well, it depends. ABBA were amazing, so well deserved.
Loreen had a pretty decent going.
Best song
afterwards.
going.
But anyway, I, just nonplussed with ABBA.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
well.
I think I'm influenced a little bit by the culture that surrounds them, i.e., basically Mamma Mia. And
Mamma Mia is dog shit. Like, I love the ABBA, but Mamma Mia is bad.
I suppose it's a little bit like Queen in this context. They're sort of a band who... more the type of people that like them is what puts me off them than actually them. But loads of people I know that really do like good music really like ABBA.
Well, I'm going to throw this out there. ABBA over Queen.
Yeah.
By like a long shot.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Because Queen come out this year as well, don't they? But they don't make the top 20.
Well, they don't have a single, but we'll get to them because they release a big album. But John Denver with Annie's Song.
Beautiful.
It is
beautiful song.
It's a beautiful song.
I love this song. I'm really sad. I really like it. It's going to be my mum's wedding song for everyone out there.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So we'll be slow dancing to this in about a month's time.
We won't. We'll be watching my mum slow dance to this. You're not allowed to slow dance to their slow dance
You join
song.
in halfway through, don't
do you? Oh, no, I'm not doing
maybe
that.
not. That might be... I mean, I've only...
I mean, if you just get on... You just start wandering out there on your own, doing a beckon... I'll hide.
Like one of those fishing lines to pull you in.
Do that.
Mime a fishing.
It can go and then go din 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 and go straight into like I was made for loving you or something. My mum will be less than pleased.
Yeah. Sounds like that will ruin the wedding. The Hollies with The Air That I Breathe.
Nah.
Yeah, no. And well, all right. Well, let's skip it and go to number 13. Alvin Stardust with Jealous Mind.
Jealous Mind, not a good Alvin Stardust song, but Alvin Stardust, I feel like, typifies exactly what I thought was happening in the UK at this time, which is his shitty end of pretend glam, and Alvin Stardust does count.
Alvin Stardust is such an unusual character. He's Welsh, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
That is Alvin.
And he did that Cuckoo song, and he holds his microphone all weird.
Well, there's a weird thing that happens in the 1970s, and I was trying to put this into sort of to make some sense of this. There's a weird thing around about this time where like 50s, a sort of mock version of 50s music and fashion becomes massive.
Yeah.
And that also, I think that sort of happened in the 80s as well. So, and I don't know, it might have all been one thing, but I don't think it was, because the version of it that I'm thinking of in the 80s was a bit more underground. But the version of it in the 70s is really mainstream, but it doesn't seem like enough time has passed for the generation to get to I don't know.
Well, maybe it is the exact time, because we're getting the 90s stuff now. People are dressing like Spice Girls again, and what was happening, like, fishnet fucking arms are back.
But that's like 25 years. This is potentially more like 15.
Yeah, well...
But yeah, I mean, maybe things... And I would have thought that things move much quicker now than they did between 1957, 8 and 1974. So
if you go on the rule of 33, maybe you do have to have a rehash of the old thing before you get to the new thing, because doesn't everything go round in circles in 33s?
I suppose
according to some conspiracy or philosophy.
Oh, maybe it was a part of the same thing, because I suppose in 1974, like, Elvis is still alive. Yeah, he's definitely still alive, but is he doing Vegas like fairly soon after this? Like, a lot of those old rockers are probably still going. They might be older, but they're still like... I wonder if it was like a reaction to the 60s, because I feel like you had like rock and roll, and then the 60s had its own thing with the hippies, summer love, all that sort of stuff. And then maybe there was a bit of a reaction to it where it was like, oh yeah, but do you remember how nice it was back when people had quiffs? Yeah. And held their microphone funny?
Thus Shorty Waddy happened as well. Again, they don't get enough mention in this chart.
We'll get to them, because they're lower in the chart. And again, that was exactly what I expected 1974 to be full of. And there is a bit of it, but there's not as much as I thought.
There you go.
Number 12, The Osmonds, Love Me for a Reason. Ultimately made famous by Boyzone. No, was it?
Was it Boyzone?
I think so.
It was one of them. One of them boys.
The Osmonds are weird. They're just fucking weird.
They're just weird.
Aren't they Mormons?
Didn't they do Crazy Horses?
Yeah.
That's a good song.
It
makes no sense compared to this.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I presume that was after this. I think that... In fact, it definitely was. Like, I feel like just the Osmonds are such a weird thing to have become popular. They had strange faces that were all the same. Yeah. They were like a family. They had a weird little one.
Yeah.
The weird little one sang a song called I'm a Long-Haired Lover from Liverpool, even though they were Mormons from Salt Lake City. Like, I don't know. The Osmonds are just fucking weird, and Love Me for a Reason
It's grim.
is fucking rubbish.
Yeah,
but I tell you what isn't rubbish.
Yes.
In at number 11, Susie Quattro with Devilgate Drive. I think Susie Quattro is fucking amazing.
Yeah, she's
brilliant.
banging.
And that's exactly the sort of music that I thought 1974.
Yeah.
That was my first thing that I presumed would be coming out
Popular.
this year. And I think Devilgate Drive is fucking brilliant.
Yeah, she's the back end of, again, this like glam movement that happened, but she's a fucking good egg.
Definitely. And talking about good eggs, on like almost as if it was made to be, number 10, another wonderful glam moment, the Rubettes with Sugar Baby
It's
Love.
so good.
It's such a beautiful song.
It's such a good song. Probably the only song they ever did. Good on them. Well, they probably did others, but no one cares. Sugar Baby Love's brilliant.
I feel like Sugar Baby Love is the sort of song that you would have sung in karaoke, or you.
It's too high. it's extraordinarily high pitch.
Let's take this opportunity for you to talk about your love, because I don't know if I'm right in doing this. So I apologize if anybody's out there who's like an expert in this stuff. But you fucking love all of these bands, like the Rubettes, Mud, the Sweet.
Oh,
and
the Sweet are the ones.
And Sweet had a song this year called Teenage Rampage,
which is fucking brilliant.
And like the Glitter Band.
Yeah.
So Gary Glitter and the Glitter Band broke up.
They broke up this year, yeah.
Mud had a song, The Cat Crept In. I don't think I know that one.
Well, no, Mud had the first UK number one of the year, and they had the Christmas number one.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh, we're getting to Mud.
Yeah,
sorry,
we'll get to them. We'll
sorry,
get to
spoiler
them.
alert.
But Sweet, the Sweet only have Teenage Rampage. All their good songs came out the year before. But fuck me,
hold off.
didn't they have some songs?
Well, so I mean, if nobody's heard the song Little Willy Willy or whatever it's fucking called. I'm
And
sure
Wigwam
you must
Bam.
have. Wigwam Bam is a banger.
Wigwam Bam is brilliant.
Little Willy is one of
Yeah.
the most insane. Well, it's not. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of quaint looking back on it in a lot of ways. But just thinking about it being on top of the pops.
Yeah, it's fucking brilliant.
And it's just so unsubtle and so absurd.
I
It's
hope you all know
brilliant.
the lyrics, 'cause I'm not singing it, but it's good.
Oh, you might if you get carried away. So tell us about your love. Why do you like 70s glam pop?
Because, so when I was a kid, my mum used to leave me at my friend's house, and we were about 9 years old, and they would leave us at home alone with the karaoke machine. And the easiest songs to work out the words and the rhythms to were the glam rock songs.
Because there was only about 5
Because
lines.
it was dead easy. They came with funny videos, i.e. the one to Little Willy had a little cartoon to it, and it was quite fun.
Is
and
it
Wigwam
a
Bam.
cartoon of a Little Willy?
No.
Is it a little Scotsman?
No, I can't remember. And we used to sing things like Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree as well, because that was dead easy to work out. But I remember learning all the words to all the Sweet songs, and, dare I say it, all the Gary Glitter songs, which looking back, it's fucking horrendous. Because they were dead
No,
easy
they were
to work
great
out.
songs.
Oh, don't even get me started on how much I actually enjoy those songs. It's probably not okay to say. But yeah, so I really remember glam rock, but British shit glam rock. Not like cool T-Rex and what came of that, and not even David Bowie. I don't really count that. It's everything that was like Sweet, Mud, Wizard, Slade enter it a bit, but they're not really the same.
Yeah.
But it's all that like, we wear glitter, we have flares on, and basically the Sweet. Because when they sing Blockbuster, I'm just like, this is the best song in the world. And Wigwam Bam is the best.
I think there is probably...
And Ballroom Blitz, fuck my life.
There's a certain like serious element to it where I feel like it was quite homoerotic, but it was definitely the people involved for the most part were like burly men who were like... Well, I'm thinking of Mud probably more than anything else.
Well,
but
they
like,
were gruff looking
they
things,
They were like men.
Yeah.
But then they were like really flamboyant.
Yeah,
And
wearing
I-
like metallic flares.
Yeah,
and
and I think that's the thing I love about it. And
Yeah.
I think mostly just because, again, similar to Little Willy Willy, like just the fact that this stuff would have been going out to like 10-year-olds
Yeah.
on top of the pops or whatever, and they were like, oh, I don't know, I think
there's
there was an important. I think probably everybody says like, and correctly probably, David Bowie like changed the world by being
effeminate.
yes, in a
androgynous
time, and that is true. But I feel like this was like the next step where it really brought things home.
Yeah,
because like David Bowie, I imagine anyway, it's difficult to say what it would have been like at the time, but he did, he looked like an alien. He didn't look like somebody that you would think to yourself, oh, that could be my dad in that outfit. Whereas Mud, it's just like, is that my dad in that outfit? Do you know what I mean?
Well, my dad did look like this as well.
But I think I just sort of think that's quite an important thing that could have happened culturally.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's given enough respect for, because I mean, obviously at the time it was an incredibly homosexual world. It was an incredibly homophobic world.
Yeah.
And so just to throw that in, it just opened a certain door, hopefully. I think maybe I'm just writing this narrative on top of it.
But I think the other problem is, and I don't know this for sure, but I don't know how respected glam rock was, because it is all of those things. But musically, it's not as interesting or technical as... Because on the alternative, you've got fucking, like, proper dad rock happening. Like Chicago and fucking Bad Company all get big this year. And Deep Purple exist. And so glam rock looks like a joke compared to those things. So if you then also attach the potentially... not as easy to digest appearance, because the people who like Deep Purple probably aren't going to like glam rock, apart from my dad. Again, he definitely liked all of it. But the thing that I like about this like silly UK glam was it was just so silly and fun. There's a song that comes out this year, I can't remember who it's by, but it's called The Bump. And like I urge everyone to, if you don't already know it, it's just a fucking stupid song about bashing your bum against someone else.
All
and
of
it's
these
really
songs
nice.
will be on the YouTube playlist if you want to go and check them out.
So I fucking love it all, and I don't really know what else to say about it. It's just beautiful.
Good.
Let's carry on with the top.
The next one is Ken Booth, Everything I Own.
Don't know it.
No, let's skip it and go to the next one.
Yeah.
Number 8, Kung Fu Fighting by Carl Douglas.
Which I think,
what a song.
On another best-selling thing that I saw, I think across the globe, with the most number ones and the most singles sold, this is the best-selling song in the world that year. Like, according to Wikipedia, across the world it had the most number ones and sold the most, which I think is brilliant.
I definitely saw a documentary which included this at some point, and I can't remember which way round this went, but either this song was the first step in loads of people getting into martial arts films.
Yes.
Or the other way round. Martial arts films had started getting big and then this song came out. I can't remember which way round it is, but I know that as a result of... I'm sure this narrative was placed on it, but as a result of this song, everybody started doing kung fu.
Yeah.
Like karate schools opened up across the country and suddenly everyone was learning how to do martial arts.
I think that's fucking brilliant.
I think it's brilliant. Well done, Carl Douglas.
Yeah, Carl Douglas.
Charles Aznavour with She at number 7. No idea. David Essex, Gonna Make You a Star at number 6. You said to me, "Oh, you'll definitely know this song."
Yeah, you didn't know it.
Did you? I've never heard this song in my life.
I think again, it's just the history of liking shit, glammy stuff. It's not glam, but
I don't know why. My dad had real beef when I was a kid with David Essex. He fucking hated David Essex. And when my dad had a beef with someone, if they came on the telly went off. Or if the song... So
that's
I'm
why
guessing,
you don't know this song.
Yeah, it probably is. Well, I mean, I wasn't alive in 1974 either. And I didn't have a karaoke machine in 2000.
Your babysitter wasn't a karaoke machine.
So, I mean, it might also be that. But yeah, he fucking hated David Essex. I think it's because he starred in the film That Will Be the Day, which is named after a Buddy Holly song.
Oh.
I don't think it's even about... maybe it is about Buddy Holly, I'm not sure, but... Anyway, he took umbrage with it. It's not hard to make my dad take umbrage with something. George McRae, Rock Your Baby.
Brilliant song.
I don't know why it's not called Rock You Baby, though, because that's definitely what they say in the song, isn't it?
That's a your baby.
Rock
so
your
that
baby.
I don't know. I think it's about rocking your baby, as in your partner.
Oh, I thought
Take her in your arms.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, rock your baby. You're
saying
directing them, not directing to.
I understand. Number 4, When Will I See You Again by the 3 Degrees.
This is a bang job of a song.
Yeah, I'm not really that into it.
Oh no, I love it. It's gorgeous.
It's a bit similar to the stylistics in its style, ironically. It's kind of like... It's sort of like soul-y, but it's not. It's like pop.
Oh.
It's too pop, it's too soft, it's too easy listening for my tastes.
I love it.
But
again, I think it was on lots of CDs of my mum's when I was a kid, so I just love it.
Number 3, Billy Don't Be a Hero by Paper Lace.
This is a little bit like... I remember it as similar to all the things that I used to sing to on karaoke as a kid, like Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree and Shawaddy and all that shit. This almost fits there. And again, you didn't know this song either.
This, you were like, you know this one.
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I don't think my dad had
any beef
with Paper Lace, but he might have done. He might have thought they were a bit flouncy with all that lace.
Oh, yeah.
Number 2, Seasons in the Sun by Terry Jacks. It's all right.
No?
Don't
think so.
I mean,
I think a boy band covered that as well. Was it Westlife? Westlife
Yeah,
did that.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. We watched that documentary about Boyd Rice. This is very obscure.
Oh, yeah.
About the famous Satanist and possible Nazi Boyd Rice. And he does a version of Seasons of the Sun, in the Sun. And it's really long and really slow. And it's literally like, we have joy, we have fun, we have seasons in the sun.
Is it just him speaking?
But it's like, well, more or less, yeah. Like,
Ah.
maybe. And it goes on for ages and it's really slow.
Ooh.
And so that's the version that I hear in my head.
Well, that sounds good. All the time.
All the time.
Just
All
got
the
both
time.
ways
I'm just
singing.
listening to a Nazi sing Seasons in the Sun really, really slow. And then at number one,
Of course.
biggest song of 1974. It's huge.
It
You
is
love
huge.
it. It's Mud with Tiger Feet.
Fucking bang job.
There's no question that Tiger Feet is
Amazing.
yeah, like the
Absolutely
best
amazing.
fucking
And it has a dance.
song.
Do you know the dance?
Yeah, well, I mean, I couldn't do it.
It's literally 4 steps, David.
I think I can picture them doing it.
Oh,
and I could probably have a
so
crack at
good.
it. If I was at a wedding and people started doing it, I'd join in.
Do you know what? You'll be at a wedding in a month's time and you will be dancing to this song.
I might have been kicked out by then because I interrupted the bride's first dance. So that is the top 20.
Yes.
I just want to mention one other odd song that
Go
I
for
picked
it.
up on. Well, 2 actually. First of all, number 50 is Band on the Run by Wings.
Yeah.
And I only bring that up because I would have said Band on the Run is one of the most remembered songs, not in comparison to Tiger Feet. But I'm surprised it's at number 50. It only got to number 3 in the charts in 1974.
Yeah,
but
fair
more
enough.
importantly, the 40th best-selling single in 1974 got to number 3 in the charts at some point, is Dance with the Devil by Cozy Powell.
Okay.
Cozy Powell is a drummer for hire, like a session musician that plays in all of... I think he was in Black Sabbath for a little while, like a really late version of Black Sabbath. He was like a famous drummer that was really good on the drums.
Oh.
Now, I've never heard the song Dance with the Devil, but for it to be the 40th best-selling single, I presume it couldn't possibly have just been him playing his drums.
Who knows? I have no idea. I don't even know it. Never heard of it.
Well, Cozy Powell. Okay, so now we're going to have to be quite quick with all of this. I just want to acknowledge the fact that loads of really, really classic albums came out in the year 1974, but we're not going to talk about them because if we did, this podcast would be about 6
Yeah,
hours
exactly.
long. So, Queen, Sheer Heart Attack came out, Thin Lizzy, Nightlife came out, David Bowie, Diamond Dogs came out. We're not going to talk about any of those. Genesis, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, Bob Marley, Natty Dread, Tom Waits released one of his first albums. We're not going to talk about any of those.
Yeah, they're all very good people.
Kraftwerk released Autobahn.
Fucking amazing. Beginning of a Janet thing.
But we're definitely not going to talk about
Nope.
that. So here's what we are going to talk about. Big Star.
Everyone's just like, you've just dismissed Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, Queen. We're going to talk about a band you probably don't even know.
Well, that's what we do on this
There you
podcast.
go.
So, Big Star released their album Radio City. There is an amazing documentary about Big Star which we watched, which came out really quite recently, or about 10 years ago or something. It's a really interesting story. Fundamentally, the story with Big Star is that they were a band who everybody who heard them loved, but not many people heard them.
Yeah.
And so they never made it big at the time. They were signed to a major label, but the major label kind of... Well, they were actually on Stax, like they were a version of the soul label Stax. They released 2 of their albums through them, but they went under at
Yeah,
some
they got
point, and
bankruptcy.
all of their albums got lost. And so they just had this disastrous career. One of them went mad. One of them, who had a replacement song written about him later on, did have some sort of a career, in the 70s and early 80s. 2 of them are dead now. 3 of them are dead now. So they had this disastrous career. But the reason the Big Star are mostly interesting is because in 1974 they made an album that had a few songs on it that basically sounded like grunge songs from 1993 or something.
And the other ones that didn't just sound like Elliott Smith.
Yes. It was as if they had come back in time 20 years, made the album that you would expect them to make in 1994, but they made it in 1974. And it's
then
insane.
disappeared. Yeah.
And the thing is like their first album just sounds like an album from 1974. Really, it's great. It's really good and stuff, but it's, and it's got some interesting stuff on it. And their third album, by then it was like a slightly different band, and it's really experimental and really interesting. And to be honest, that's way ahead of its time as well. But this second album, it just blows your mind.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
How the fuck it ever happened. So I'd really recommend that documentary. So we're going to also talk about Sparks.
Oh my god.
So 1974 was the year that Sparks released Kimono My House. And also, probably more importantly, This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. That was good. We harmonised on that. Here is Synchronicity number 2. This is a more... I wish I'd done this Synchronicity first before the other one, because the other one seems quite sad. Now, again, 1974, picked at complete random.
Yes.
Right? I had no idea that Sparks were even around or anything.
Yes.
But we've been talking about watching this Sparks documentary since it came out.
Yeah. Edgar Wright wrote it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, did it.
And we learn that we're going to be talking about 1974. We sit down for something that we occasionally refer to as a production meeting. But in reality, it's us in our pyjamas on the couch talking about what we're going to talk about. And we had just gone to Entombed Festival the weekend before.
Yes.
Entombed Festival was great. We'll talk about it probably on the next episode. But heavy music. Really heavy music. Everything was heavy. And I really didn't... After that weekend, which was a brilliant weekend, I wanted some soft stuff.
Yeah.
So first of all, I put on Elliott Smith, weirdly. Listened to an album of Elliott Smith. That was nice. Relaxed me. Just perfect. And then Elliott Smith released some of his albums through a record label called Kill Rock Stars, which I used to really love. They don't necessarily release, like, soft stuff, but it's the kind of weird stuff. And I had a compilation by them, which was a double CD compilation that I don't think I'd ever listened to, or if I'd listened to it, I'd put it on, but I definitely didn't remember anything about it. It was a later day thing. I barely knew any of the bands of it. I put the CD on, and we sat down for our production meeting. We were looking through the internet, and at some point, we came across the fact that Sparks are from 1974. We were both surprised. Almost immediately, someone covered This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us on the fucking CD.
Yeah.
Even when I looked at this, because I thought, well, maybe I was looking and I picked it out. When I looked on the thing, the CD doesn't even have the name of the tracks on the back. It's just the band names. So there was no way of me knowing that it was on there. That was spooky as fuck.
That was spooky. It was made to be.
Anyhow, we watched the Sparks documentary.
Dave's craziness aside.
which is called The Brothers
I see the number
Sparks.
23 everywhere.
And Sparks were incredible.
Oh my god, I think I'm absolutely in love with them. That documentary, I know it's kind of a bit schlocky at times, and the dude that made it, he does, what did he make? Shaun of the Dead and all that stuff. He's a bit of a meh. But Sparks themselves, dead interesting. And this album is the first of 25, 26 maybe now?
26, I think, yeah.
They've just fucking never stopped, and their story is absolutely incredible. And this song is off their first album that they make that gets big. It is their first album, isn't it? Coming to My House.
No, it's not. It's their third album, but they had that weird thing where they made 2 albums that flopped.
Yes.
With a different band. And then they moved to the UK and started.
Yes,
it's still the
because
two
they're
brothers,
American.
Yeah.
They're from California, and then they sound like the most British thing ever. And if you've seen them, oh my god. They're like, you've got this like
seen Sparks.
Oh.
I mean, come on. They're very iconic.
I hadn't really remembered what the keyboard player looked like. I vaguely remembered he was odd looking. I forgot that he had a Hitler moustache for his entire career. Good boy. I just loved them. They just really did what they wanted to do, and I did not realise how I knew that song was silly. I did not realise how beautiful and wonderful and silly and amazing those lyrics are. And the songs. Just good on them. Everyone should watch that documentary.
I agree. I think that they are lovely and really interesting people, and they made incredible music. It's not all to my taste, but, they've always come from a really genuine place.
Yeah.
I will say I didn't like the documentary very much.
No, I know.
For a bunch of different reasons, really, but most of them were the director putting too much of himself in it. Not literally, although he does interview himself in it, which I think is a bit shit, but not that much. But more... It's like the talking heads on it are all just obviously his mates.
Yeah.
Why is Adam Buxton on there? The only reason Adam Buxton is on there is because he's mates with the director and he likes Sparks a bit.
Exactly.
But there's loads of things like that, and it does all feel a little bit like a lot of the people that are on there. It's just like you've just got a famous mate.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant! You met Dave Grohl. I don't even think Dave Grohl's on there. I think that was a different documentary.
Oh, Thurston Moore turns up, though. It's not
cool.
a music documentary from the last 50 years unless Thurston Moore turns up. Sick of his face.
But yeah, I mean, it was quite well made. But also it did a really thing that I fucking hate in documentaries so much, and it shows a filmmaker up for just being dog shit, is where if somebody says something like, I don't know. I really like cats. They show an image that they've taken from somewhere of a cat. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you
Everything
mean.
is
It cuts
absolutely,
really quickly
it's
to a
completely
thing.
narrative.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
every single thing, it's like, oh, we were on a train, and then there's just like an image of a train going past that's taken from the, oh, here's a cool image that I found on,
it is that.
some fucking... And there's so much of that. It's just continuous. It never stops. With it's just like, oh, someone said a word that I understand what that word is, so here's a picture of it.
It's relentless.
Fuck off. Just either do something artistic, or let's just look at them.
Yeah,
let them
because they're wonderful.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
brilliant.
They're actually really interesting, even to look at.
Yeah,
fucking just give me a talking head.
Exactly. I only have one more music tidbit for this year, and that is that the CBGB scene in New York starts. So whilst punk doesn't exist properly at this point, and the Stooges have already come out and Raw Power is out and they've already kind of done their big things, Blondie start playing at CBGB's Television, do their first show. Yeah. It all starts kicking off down there, and all those bands get together and start playing for the first time. So culturally, it is an incredibly important year all round.
Well, and I think also at that time in New York, that's the exact time where everything is just starting. All of that, like, hip-hop is just
and
starting, and like, there's loads of stuff going on in New York
begins.
that hasn't come to fruition yet, but which is bubbling.
Yeah, it's bubbling. So it's all good. Good year.
Well, just one more, very quickly. Kiss, first album. Can you even imagine? Can you imagine life without it?
Can you? I mean, I don't listen to a single song off that first album.
No.
But at least they did it. They got there. Their makeup wasn't great. They were on it, though. Good on them. So I think we've talked for long enough about music. So we'll move on to our next subject and our last subject of the podcast. So we'll do the film quiz now. What was odd about the Blazing Saddles world premiere? Blazing Saddles came out this year, by the way, guys.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that. What was odd about it?
Well, not odd. What was different about it?
It was...
It's similar to your Jaws experience that you had at Brockwell Lido.
Oh bloody hell! It was outdoors.
200 guests were on horseback.
Oh god!
I know, what knobs, actual knobs. The film Death Wish came out this year, and the main character is called Paul Kersey. But this was not the original name for this character. Where did this name come from?
Oh god, I don't know. Charles Bronson's dead best friend from school.
Oh, it's not that interesting at all. There was an extra whose name was Paul Kersey, and they went, "Your name's all right," and they were like, "Let me in every scene." And so there's an extra that's in every scene that you could possibly have an extra in, and his real name is Paul Kersey, just so they could use his name. There you go. The film Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out this year, and according to John Larroquette, I think I've said his name right, he did the narration at the beginning. What was his payment in order to do the narration?
Oh, it was definitely not anything. I presume it probably wasn't money. It was like, let's say, coke and a hooker.
Oh, so close. Marijuana. He had a few joints and then he did it. So, the film The Great Gatsby came out this year, and Robert Towne, he was a screenwriter, but he refused to write the screenplay. He said, "I don't want to be an unknown Hollywood screenwriter who fucked up a literary classic." He then went on to write a different film that went out this year and earned him an Academy Award and established him as one of the greatest screenwriters of the period.
Oh, so something good.
Something very good.
Chinatown.
It was Chinatown! Boom shakalaka.
Yes.
And that's
Thanks
it.
for the fanfare.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought I had another question. But that is the end of my quiz. Boo.
Very good.
Yes.
So we are not going to go through the top movies, because honestly, there was so many good movies that came out, and the vast majority of them aren't in the top 10 or even in the top 20. I was amazed by how many movies there were that came out that were like ones that I'd either seen and liked or that I really wanted to watch, if that makes sense. I didn't really think in 1974 there would be that many, actually.
No.
Generally speaking, in films, from a trashy movie perspective, 1974 or like the mid-70s was very much the time of the Grindhouse. There was loads of really low-budget films that were being made specifically for that audience. There's a couple of like really big blaxploitation films that come out this year, Foxy Brown, and 2 or 3 others that escape me at the moment. And a lot of that kind of like urban type of film was being made. And I feel like this, just looking at some of the films that ended up being really popular, that kind of low-budget grindhouse film was starting to break into more of a mainstream area. And so 2 examples of that are Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Death Wish, both of which we've already mentioned. Death Wish, we watched Charles Bronson. So we'd already watched Death Wish 4, I think.
We watched it for the podcast.
No,
did we not? Did we not review it?
We watched it on a Sunday afternoon when we were very hungover.
Oh gosh, I really thought we discussed it.
No, unless I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not.
No.
I think we just watched Death Wish 4 for fun.
Yeah, I don't know.
Death Wish 4 was not fun. Death Wish was alright.
It is okay. The whole notion of it is pretty cool.
I would argue that the notion of it is what isn't cool. I mean, it is very much a kind of like... Look, all brown people are criminals.
Oh, no,
Be careful.
no.
Don't go out in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
No, I just like the vigilante side of it, but that's probably it.
I think the problem with vigilante films, all vigilante films from this period, is that by default almost, they were racist, they were ageist.
Yeah.
They were a lot of different things that don't necessarily age all that well. And I would say that Death Wish is one of the least subtle. It was directed by Michael Winner, who is English and is just a horrible human being.
Is this the film that throws around a lot of slurs?
There's a lot of different problems with it.
Yeah, I'm remembering some horrible bits of this film.
But it's not... I mean, it is that, but you kind of expect that from a movie like this. But I think the problem with it is more that it has such a pessimistic view of humanity. And it's such, like, scaremongering, I would say.
Yeah.
It says, this is the reason for like White Flight, I think, is films like this. It's like, if you go into the city, you're immediately going to get beaten up, mugged, raped, killed. That's just what's going to happen, particularly at night, And so we need this man to come in. And of course, this is the exact sort of message that people were getting when they were saying, let's give the police loads of freedoms to just beat the fuck out of people.
Yeah, true,
let's let them stop and search people, all those sorts of things. I'm not saying that's Death Wish's fault, but I do think it plants the seed.
Yeah, and it's feeding the people that do think that. It's not good.
But it's definitely a film that could have been a grindhouse film, but sort of ended up being made by a big studio and making $22 million. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre was not made by a big studio by any means, but it was massive. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is obviously a really classic horror movie, which Siobhan still hasn't seen.
I know, I still haven't seen it.
We just had so many films to watch, and I feel like I've seen it so many times that we didn't watch it. We just watched some other ones.
Well, we did watch some other ones. Christ.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the films that I bought off a dodgy man in Scotland because it was banned in the early 90s, not early 90s, in the early noughties. Still banned in the UK right up until, I don't know, around about 2000. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre you could not see legally.
That's so ridiculous. Especially when you go and watch them now and you're like, really?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. But let's go through all of the other films that we watched. And let's start with the number 1 top-grossing movie of 1974, which made $119.5 million, Blazing Saddles. Now, I just want to say, I've never seen Blazing Saddles before.
No.
I've only ever seen the scene where everyone farts for a while. And I like Mel Brooks, who made it.
What are the other? Because we watched a Mel Brooks film fairly recently that was reasonable.
Spaceballs, and he made he made loads of films.
He's done so many. Yeah. I was expecting the style of humour.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Blazing Saddles, I think, is generally, if you watch greatest comedy films of all time, is almost always voted, if not number 1, then
it's up there with
the
Monty
top.
Python and all that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's considered an absolute classic. I hated it.
It was awful. There was not one funny bit.
I think that. So I've been since we watched it, I've been thinking quite a lot about it. I think that one of the things it really puts you off in the first scene or two, they drop every problematic word that you can put. Now, of course, the thing is it's obviously a anti-racist film at a time when racism was still very much rife.
Yeah,
and it's a very forward-thinking film in a lot of ways, but it does it through satire.
Yeah.
So, of course, if you took it out of context, there's quite a lot of things in it that seem racist, but they're not racist. And Richard Pryor was involved in writing it, and I get the impression, just from watching it, that probably a lot of the ideas came from him.
Yeah.
And I think that the jokes probably came from someone else. So whilst there are problematic things like that about it, which actually I think if you really think about it, they're not actually problematic. But I mean, it's not just racial slurs, by the way. It's all sorts of different
homophobic,
slurs
sexist,
that you can
just
even imagine.
every way to be offensive possible.
But I just didn't think it was funny.
It's just not clever.
And it's not clever. That's exactly right.
It's like dropping the word to be offensive and to be shocking, and then not following it with anything and not doing it in a clever way. So you're watching it and you're just like, no, it's not funny, and I think I am just offended, and that's not. And I know that's not what you're going for, and I know it's forward thinking, but the feeling isn't not even offence. It's just nothing. Just like, oh, you know that was the bit that was meant to be funny. And you just left thinking that wasn't that funny. In fact, that was just pretty stupid, really.
Yeah, it's very lowbrow.
Extraordinarily lowbrow. Again, like you mentioned, the main scene that everyone knows is just people farting.
Well, they have
which is fine.
First, so I mean, it is a payoff to a hilarious gag.
I love a good fart. I love a good poo.
I'm actually quite surprised you didn't laugh at that scene at all.
I think I was so upset with how unfunny the film had been at that point that I was like, oh my god, it's all been building to this, and this is now what I'm meant to be laughing at. I thought, anyway, just really crap. So, the world was in a stupid place with what it genuinely liked.
Yeah, I've got a horrible feeling I just missed something. And this is one of those things where you just think, well, everyone really likes this film. Everyone always says this is a brilliant film. Yeah. Well, is there something wrong with me? Like, what have I got wrong? If you compare it to something like Monty Python, and maybe it's just maybe it is just the difference between American humour and English humour.
Possibly,
but it's trying to be weird and wacky.
Yeah.
But those weird and wacky bits are so forced and not good.
And also knowing that I've seen other Mel Brooks things that I have found kind of funny because I knew this humour was coming.
I think Spaceballs is fucking brilliant.
But it's just like we all knew this humour was coming. Did he do the Robin Hood Men in Tights?
Maybe it's that sort of shit that he does.
I think he might have.
Yeah, probably.
And that's one of my favourite films. I fucking love that shit. So this was a bit of a turn.
And his style obviously really influenced comedy that came out. I mean, without that, you wouldn't have got Airplane. You wouldn't have got Naked Gun.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have got all of those sorts of Leslie Nielsen ones and that kind of style. But I mean, in fairness, I would argue you also wouldn't have got fucking Scary Movie, and it's like it is
Hot Tub Time Machine.
Someone told me that we should watch that.
100%. I want to watch that.
Okay, right.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I fucking hated it, and I apologise if I'm wrong.
Let's move on to films we did like, because there's no others in that top 10 or 20 that I even want to mention.
No. So, Chinatown.
Chinatown, really good.
Chinatown is absolutely brilliant. It's considered a real classic. I don't know, it wasn't massive at the time. It made $23 million. That's quite a lot, I suppose.
Wow.
It's got Jack Nicholson in it. It's
Roman
like a
Polanski
film noir.
Isn't it?
It's a Roman Polanski film, which is a shame because he is a massive pedo. But it's great.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
I just think it's a brilliant film. I don't think that we need to tell anyone that it's a brilliant film. I think it's.
But if you haven't watched it, definitely watch it.
Definitely watch it if you've not seen it.
Yeah.
It's not an easy watch. Oh, it isn't easy. I don't know. To the modern eye, it's not like. It's not. I don't even know.
I think it would have been a bit of a thriller of its time. Or there's scenes that have that kind of all of a sudden violent. Like it's kind of like bobbling along, and then Jack Nicholson. There's a scene where he gets a knife put up his nose and pulled straight out, and it's incredibly hard to watch given how random it is and how realistic it looks, and it comes out of nowhere. And it's very much that style of film, like plodding along with the story. But then there's these kind of quite violent little bits. Yeah. It's very, very, very good. Really good. Probably one of the better films that we watched.
The rock musical Phantom of the Paradise came out in 1974. This is a film that I've always had my eye on because it's always kind of brought up in the same breath as like Rocky Horror Show.
Yeah, it's the year before Rocky Horror, isn't it?
I think.
Yeah.
And it's a rock, musical.
Well, it's Phantom of the Opera. But it's Phantom of the Paradise because the Paradise is the name of a bar
or kind
theatre.
of like a club or something.
Yeah, club, that's it.
And I mean this along with quite a lot of these other things, to be honest. Yeah. And I haven't really brought this up yet. There's loads of things from 1974. which suggests that the 1974 was wacky as fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
well, this had like trauma feels about
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Like it had kind
Well,
of
it's before, but yeah.
but like pre-Toxic Avenger silliness, like with the DIY shit on the faces and just the silliness of it.
It's surreal. It's not really told in a narrative way. Like it does, nothing really matters. Like there's no sense of. It doesn't need to make sense at all.
Even though it's kind of semi-trying to.
Well, kind of, but there's loads of things just like where someone's in prison and he puts himself in a box and gets mailed somewhere else and then he's just there. You know, like it's very surrealist in that context.
Yeah, that's true.
The music isn't necessarily that brilliant, but it's all right. It's got Jessica... Can't remember her surname, who is the girl from Suspiria.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Who doesn't really act very well. I think she must have been a singer because she's also in the Rocky Horror Show sequel.
And she definitely is doing the singing in this film, I think. Yeah,
definitely. It's definitely worth watching. It's incredibly 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know how to really put it into words.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it any better, but it is definitely funny enough to watch.
And then we watched It's Alive, which is much more on the trash.
Very trash.
Yeah. It's directed by Larry Cohen, who went on to make loads of really sort of low-budget horror movies, including, I believe, The Stuff, which I would very much recommend.
Okay.
But
it's definitely hilarious in as much... Well, it's not done hilariously.
No. It was much... So I thought it was going to be a really, really low-budget, really hokey, rubbish film. To be honest. And it is a bit rubbish, but other than that... It's not. It's probably low budget, but it's definitely got. It's
made really well.
Yeah, he's capable of making a film.
Yeah, and it's acted way more serious than I would have thought.
Yeah.
I mean, the premise is a woman gives birth and the baby goes mad and kills everyone.
Yeah,
and is on the run and is killing people.
Yeah, wonderfully metaphorical in that way.
Yeah, but it sounds like fucking insane, and also it's the mum's desire to get the baby back, even though it's killing everyone. So it sounds like it's going to be hilarious, but it's actually told way more serious than you'd think it would.
Yeah,
and that isn't off-putting. It's strange. No. I actually quite liked it, even though very quickly it's very serious.
Yeah, it is an odd film. This is another thing about these 70s films. It is quite a grey film.
Yeah,
I mentioned this at the very start, and I think that generally we've not really mentioned this. Maybe it's just because we haven't covered any of the ones, but it is a very 70s looking grey film. Yeah. Everybody looks a bit like mucky and like everyone's a bit overweight and they all look like they've just sort of smoked too much. They all look like the father in this film, who presumably is supposed to be 30 or something.
Oh yeah,
because he's just had his first kid. He looks like he's
lots of
kids. like he's 55, and maybe he is 55, and it's just the only actor they could find. But there's quite a lot of that. Like people wear really terrible outfits. You know, like their suits are awful. All the men wear their trousers literally right round the middle of their pot belly.
With their trousers,
and there's so much extra material that doesn't need to be there. And It's Alive just stank of that, really.
Yeah.
So did a film called Frightmare, which Siobhan didn't watch, but I did, which is a Pete Walker film. It's a UK trashy horror movie, which was again very much made for the Grindhouse circuit. I used to really like Pete Walker's films. He's made a bunch of them, or he made a bunch of them in the 70s, one of which is set in Chislehurst Caves, which was just up the road from where I grew up. And they use Chislehurst Caves and they pretend it's the moon. So that's nice. And,
but as a kid, did you go there and you were like, I'm on the moon?
Yeah,
because
totally. No, I went there as a kid and then I watched the film later.
Oh,
so
fair.
No. But yeah, Frightmare is another incredibly grey film. It's even greyer because it's set in the UK. So it's really just...
Is it like those Hammer horrors kind of?
Kind of, but it's like... Yeah, there doesn't look like there's any joy going on in this country whatsoever in 1974. I mean,
in fairness, there wasn't the minor stuff going on.
Yeah,
I mean,
no, exactly.
Let's not go there.
It wasn't a great time. I tell you where there was some joy, though. Female Trouble.
Oh my god!
So John Waters released his second film, Female Trouble, which is... I actually had no idea about this. Is it like his second?
I don't think it's his second film, because Multiple Maniacs was his first, and Pink Flamingos was 72.
Oh, sorry, yes, it's third.
But it's his second, big... proper film.
Yeah.
And it's my favourite John Waters film, I think.
It was much less low budget, although it was very low budget, but it was much less so than I was expecting.
Yeah, and it's more commercially viable than... He made Pink Flamingos to be outrageous and unwatchable in regular cinemas, whereas Female Trouble has a plot and it's told very well, and there's Not as many vulgar scenes, nowhere near as many as in Pink
No,
Flamingos.
there's definitely some. Though.
But there's definitely some. But it's just fucking brilliant. Divine plays someone who wants to be beautiful and well revered, and this couple take her on, and just the idea of, I mean, she's injected with liquid eyeliner to make herself more beautiful, and the idea is crime is beautiful, and it just follows this like descent into chaos.
Well, yeah, but
of this person.
and the important bit is that then they decide that her being as ugly as possible is beautiful, and so they fuck her face up.
This is after her next door neighbour, who she's been keeping in a birdcage, Edith Massey, throws acid in her face.
Who, by the way, I mean, I hope that people, if you can't picture Edith Massey, you should be able to, but if you can't, just bring her up on your Google now and then just imagine what I'm going to say. You see all of her jugs.
Yeah, she is a delight. So here's a fact. I've got so many good facts about female trouble that I'll reel off as quick as I can. It took 3 people to squeeze her into her black leather S&M outfit that she wears for the entirety of this film, which is a leather. Her tits are out. It's lace up all the way up. She's definitely not wearing pants. She's fucking beautiful. I'll make sure there'll be a picture of her on our Instagram.
I feel like we've talked about her before on this podcast, but she is a wonderful... Her and Divine, between them, and John Waters for that matter.
Fucking glorious. I mean, the whole lot of them.
What an amazing thing that all of those people were in the same place at the same time.
It's so brilliant. Divine has a trampolining scene she does in one take, and he went and took trampoline lessons at the local YMCA to get it right, and does a backflip.
Yeah, but it's not right. I mean,
it's much better than I thought it should be.
It's beautifully bad. I mean, the whole thing with that scene, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, but it's like things are subtly going wrong, but Divine is still just
smacking
beaming with glory.
Well, they do. There's one other scene that they do in this, which is so in Pink Flamingos. There's a scene where Divine's walking down the street, and there's a look of horror from all the people walking in the street with her, and it's filmed in real time, and it is people's genuine reactions to her. But they try to do the same thing again in this film, and no one seems fazed at all. And John Waters thinks it's because she was covered in scars at this point. Yeah. And so people were just avoiding looking at her and just thought she was a mad woman.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, by this point, it's just Baltimore. It's what happens. The mentally unwell walk around with burnt faces. But it's just so wonderful.
It is brilliant.
Such a good film.
At some point, I think we'll do an episode about John Waters.
Oh, we have to, yeah.
So, talking about brilliant and wonderful...
I know which one you're going to pick next.
Flesh Gordon came out in 1974. Flesh Gordon... which came out, by the way, before the famous remaking of Flash Gordon with like Brian Blessed and everything in it. But they're very similar. It's because they're based on the.
Is there as much fucking?
No. They're not similar in that respect. No, they're similar in the respect that they're both based on a like black and white version of Flash Gordon that was around in the. I think it might have even been the 30s or 40s or something. And Flesh Gordon. I was glad to find it came out in 1974 because it gave me my first excuse to watch it, having looked at the video box in a video shop in probably 1989.
What does the cover of Flesh Gordon look like?
It's a cartoon.
Is it just a penis?
It's just not really. I think there is a picture. So Flesh Gordon rides in a rocket ship that's shaped like a cock. That gives you an idea of what this film is like. It was a film that was always in video shops, and I think one of the reasons it was because. I want to say in 1993 or something, Flesh Gordon 2 came out.
Oh.
Which I haven't seen. But that was definitely in video shops as well. So I wonder whether they just kept it around. It was probably just like a really popular title. Yeah. Because there wasn't many things like it really available in an Orpington video shop. And I always wanted to see it when I was a kid for obvious reasons. Because, it was called Flesh Gordon. It looked like it had tits in it. And there was a spaceship shaped like a penis. And I'm pretty sure that one of my friends said that they'd seen it, and they said that it was like a hardcore pornography film, so we always wanted to try and trick our parents into letting us get it for like sleepover and stuff. They never fell for it. It's called Flesh Gordon, for God's sake. Anyhow, I don't really know now what to say about the film. It's incredible.
I mean, there is just random fucking everywhere. Well, very much real.
Well, so here's the thing. I read about this afterwards. So fundamentally, it was released as like an erotic film. So there's loads of ridiculous excuses for tits.
Yeah.
And a lot of pubic hair.
Lots of tits
from everyone. And cock. There's a fair few
Not
cocks
as
in
much.
It. There's quite a few. There's quite a lot.
Sorry, that wasn't a complaint.
No, I didn't think it was. I was complaining myself. No, but there was...
It's not really erotic.
It's definitely not erotic. No one's going to get hard watching this film. Or, lady hard. But there's loads of nudity in it. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It was actually, I think it must have been made as a porno film in some version. But the interesting thing about it is that the vast majority of the film, like all of the budget goes on Ray Harryhausen style practical effects.
Yeah.
Where it's like stop motion animation and stuff. And like there's loads of story. There's loads and loads of other stuff which isn't nudity or porn. So they did make it as a film, but there's just this one weird scene where, having been kind of like a softcore type porn, there's this one scene where loads of people are on the floor having a kind of orgy while something else is going on. And in the background, there's proper...
There's actual penetration that you can kind of notice, but it isn't the focus.
Totally.
So you're just like, oh... Is it a porn? Because those people are having sex, but they're trying to act a very serious... Well, not serious, it's called Flesh Gordon, but they're trying to actually have a scene also. Yeah. So there's just like 20 people on the floor all rutting, and then like the actual action scene going on in the background. And you're just like, if it's real porn, then why aren't we looking there? But they are definitely fucking.
I mean, you're definitely not going to watch it.
But you're looking at it. No, but you know what I mean. Like,
but I'm saying
why have they got these people actually having sex if they're not going to look at them? But it is in the shot. But it's very strange. But the humour in this was way funnier than Blazing Saddles, and it's still shit humour.
Yeah.
But like, there's basically a sex beam that's being fired out from the planet Porno. Yeah. Dildo is a slur. Like, fuck off, you dildo.
Ming the Merciless, who's called Wang in this, and I think he's a bit of a racist character actually. But still, if you let that go over your head, he calls everyone dildos. He's just like, get out of here, you dildo. Yeah. Do this, you dildo.
There's a sex beam that gets fired at a plane, and the captain turns to the other and goes, he's just talking, I don't know, goes, Captain, I've got a boner. Yeah. And it's just like, this is legit ridiculous. And everyone just starts fucking. But it's it's way better than Blazing Saddles. Don't know why that wasn't number one.
It's ahead of its time. There's lots of men fucking men. There's lots of ladies fucking ladies. There's lots of people fucking other people.
Yeah.
There's willies in mouths. There's willies in... There's
vaginas in mouths.
There's vaginas in mouths.
It's just a wonderful thing.
There's lots of... It's a very unusual film. But I will say, we're coming to the end now. I think that Flesh Gordon has prepared us, because don't quote me on this, but I think on the next episode of Breakfast Punks podcast, we're going to be watching some pornos and discussing them. So more on that on the next episode. I think that might be it. I also watched a film called Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue, which I just want to mention very quickly, which is one that I watched years ago. I think it was like a lost film. It was made by Italians, but it's set in Manchester. It's also called Let Sleep and Corpses Lie. And it's not that great, but it is funny for all the wrong reasons.
Oh, God.
Because it's incredibly English, but it's made in the style of an Italian film. If you've ever seen an Italian film from the 70s or 80s, they're all dubbed, always dubbed, like all the giallos and stuff. But they're not always dubbed by people that clearly can't speak English, who are playing like farmers in Yorkshire, and then overdubbed with an Italian, presumably an Italian. I think maybe the same Italian doing all of the male voices and the same one doing all the female voices, trying to put on various different British accents. Lots of Scottish, lots of sort of Northern, some like posh. One of them sort of a Cockney, but he's not really. I would say to all of our northern friends up there, if you can get hold of The Living Dead at the Manchester Morgue, I think that you're going to get a kick out of it, or you might be really offended. Can't decide.
You take your pick.
And on that note, I think we're going to have to call it a day.
Yes.
For this Timecop episode of 1974.
It's been a joy.
It has been a joy.
It's been a very big joy.
I think that Timebot 500 might be dead.
Oh, wishing for death.
So we're going to leave you
away for another 10 episodes.
We're going to leave you now.
If you'd like to support us, please do. We've got Instagram, Breakfast Punks Podcast. You can message us that way as well, or you can email us at shamcityroasters@gmail.com if you've got any thoughts, feedback or suggestions. That is always welcome. We have a YouTube channel which we've referred to quite a few times. I think it's Breakfast Punks Podcast. If you search for that, and there'll be a playlist for this episode. There's playlists for all the other episodes as well, so do go a catch up on that. And we also have a Patreon now, so if you'd like to financially support us in any way, you are welcome to do so. I think it's Breakfast Punks Podcast on the Patreon. And yeah, there's different things if you sign up. If you can get an extra episode each month, as well as various other things that we keep saying this, but we will eventually get round to figuring out how to provide more. But thank you very much to everyone who's already supporting us that way. It's it's very humbling and very lovely, and thank you.
And again, if you want to hear our opinions on Don't Look Up, you're going to have to get beyond our paywall.
Beyond the paywall. Oh my gosh.
We will see you in 2 weeks' time, where, like I say, we may or may not be discussing some pornos. And I hope you have a lovely 2 weeks.
Indeed. Ta-ra.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, dudes and dudesses.
Hey, Stooge. Fancy seeing you here.
You must have smelled our delicious breakfast.
Or could it be the Raj here just had too much cold beer and blew us a cool, stiff breeze right out of his butthole?
You must be gutted you've run out of Breakfast Punk's episodes to listen to.
I can't live without my music.
But would you be interested in an extra helping?
Yeah!
Are you hungry for a bit more?
Yeah!
How about an extra bowl of Breakfast Punk's podcast?
Yeah! Eat a bowl of fuck!
Sign up for our Patreon now for an exclusive monthly episode, the opportunity to vote on the films to be reviewed, sneaky extras, and a whole lot of love. Your support will help us make improvements to the show, upgrade our equipment, and maybe get our cat some new shoes.
My parents are going to be real sorry if I don't get them cha-cha heels. I asked and I better get it.
Sign up now at patreon.com/Breakfast Punks podcast. We really appreciate your support.
I'll tell you what, man. I'll hold yours if you hold mine.